You know, with some other reviewers, when they get to a particularly bad game they've had some experience with before, they'll say something along the lines of, "I've been dreading getting to this game." Well, that's not the case with me. Oh, how I've been looking forward to this. I've wanted to talk about this one for years. As you can already tell, I have some rather strong feelings towards the game in question. These feelings have been bottling up since I first played it in 2012, and it's time to let it all out. Super Paper Mario was a disappointment to many Paper Mario fans when it came out. While the story and writing was in line with the previous games, the gameplay completely changed. Because of this, the future of the series was uncertain, especially since Super had sold very well in comparison to its predecessors. People were worried that the series would continue in this direction instead of going back to what they wanted. But what was actually going on was more changes. It wouldn't be like Thousand Year Door, or even Super. It would be its own beast. At first, this new Paper Mario game seemed promising. It was going back to turn-based combat and even looked like it would have partners. But if only we had known. The first red flag was that it would be on the 3DS, not a console. Now the issue with this is that there were two ongoing Mario RPG series, Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi. Paper Mario was the console RPG series, while Mario and Luigi was the handheld series. So it was confusing to put Paper Mario on 3DS when that was Mario and Luigi's territory. And all it did was make the Wii U not have a Mario RPG in its early days. Imagine if the Wii U had launched with a proper Paper Mario game. Doubt its fate would be drastically different, but it could have helped. But that was the least of our worries. For while it looked like a return to form, it was anything but. Instead of going back to the roots, it strayed even farther. Even worse, it single-handedly destroyed what the series was, and it would never go back. This game is infamous, not just because it was different, but because of how nearly every change, nearly every decision was awful. This is Paper Mario Sticker Star. If you came into this perhaps hoping for a more positive look at this game, or even just for me to go easy on it, this isn't what you're looking for. I'm not going to hide the tone that this video will have. This game is the main reason I even started reviewing this series. Sure, I would want to review the other games eventually, but this is the game I wanted to talk about the most. Because to put it bluntly, I despise this game. Now don't get the wrong idea. This isn't going to be a rant where I yell and curse at the game. This'll still be like my usual reviews, and credit will still be given where credit is due. I just feel it's pointless to hide my true feelings on this game. I also wanted to leave no stone unturned. I want to make up for the severe lack of critical analysis this game has received. So I've recruited a couple friends of mine who have a similar stance on this game, Horayn and Boxman, to help with the script. I handled the recording and script writing differently than usual with the help of these two in hopes to cover as much of this game as possible. If you don't understand why Sticker Star is hated, then you will know. I want to lay out everything wrong with this game, so why don't we get started?
In the red corner!
It should go without saying that the whole game will be spoiled, as well as the first three games. Much like the previous games, we start with a story, and even a book. But unlike Thousand Year Door, where it talks about an ancient treasure tied to a city that was destroyed in a cataclysm, or Super, where it talks about a dark book of prophecies, the story is a lot less intriguing. It's about a holiday called the Sticker Fest, which is a celebration of stickers. You can tell the direction the tone of this game is going compared to the previous games. They celebrate stickers, apparently, and there's this thing called the Sticker Comet, which grants wishes. We see the celebration with Peach on stage as the Sticker Comet comes down really close to everyone. And as you'd expect, Bowser appears. And after some toads try to stop him, he touches the Sticker Comet, which causes it to explode. This results in this crown falling on Bowser, which powers him up, and he destroys the place while kidnapping Peach. Mario wakes up after the confrontation and sees that the place got wrecked. He's called over to this sign and helps out this crown-shaped sticker, who then proceeds to scold Mario for touching the sticker comet. Even after he tells her that Bowser is responsible, she still scolds him. This is Kirsty, and let this introduction set the tone for her character. She is the caretaker of the royal stickers. They are the ones who grant wishes. That crown that fell on Bowser's head was a royal sticker, and after the comet was destroyed, the rest of them scattered across the land. Right away, we get some confusing information. So the object that came down and exploded when Bowser touched it was the sticker comet. The royal stickers were inside the comet, but Kirsty says she comes from the sticker star, not the comet, which I assume is a different thing from the comet given how she talks about it. But we never really get an idea of what the sticker star even is. And if she's the caretaker of the royal stickers, then why wouldn't she be in the comet as well? Although you see her stuck to a sign at the beginning, it seems like she was in the comet when it exploded. I guess the sticker star would be the equivalent to Star Haven, and the sticker comet would be the equivalent to the Star Rod, and the royal stickers being the Star Spirits. But Mario agrees to help Kirsty restore the sticker comet and find the royal stickers. So after saving all the toads of Decalburg, they set off. They travel to various worlds around to defeat those who have claimed the royal stickers, until they are ready to face Bowser himself. After a long battle, Bowser grows bigger and stronger, and in order to stop him, Kirsty sacrifices herself by letting Mario use her power. This does give him the strength to beat Bowser and save Peach, and with all the royal stickers gathered, Mario makes a wish. The Sticker Fest continues, and it's revealed that Mario's wish was to bring Kirsty back to life. And that is basically the main story in its entirety. One of the things that made this game infamous is the story, or should I say, the lack of a story. The previous games did a lot to push Mario's world forward and tell more substantial stories than what was expected from typical Mario games. Even the first game, which is Bowser kidnapping Peach, added a lot more substance to keep it fresh. But this game regresses even past Super Mario RPG, let alone Paper Mario. It's only a hair more complex than a new Super Mario Bros. Plot, and that's only because this kind of game demands more than the literal bare minimum. But given how both Thousand Year Door and Super had gone above and beyond what the first game did, creating all new worlds, characters, species, new stories with more depth, to say that Sticker Star rejecting all that to barely surpass what the 2D platformers do is, well, disappointing would be an understatement. But there are only so many ways in which you can just state this game has no story. I think it's time to add a little substance to this argument and show you what I mean. After all, I wouldn't want to lower myself to Sticker Star standards. You want to know just how much it regressed? Well, how about the fact that this is basically a watered-down version of Paper Mario 64's plot? One thing you may have noticed about the story of this game are the similarities to the first Paper Mario. It's as if they took the story of the first game and ripped out everything that made it interesting. It has 64 skeleton, but none of the substance. Both these games follow the basic plot of Bowser kidnapping Peach, but adding a powerful wish-granting object that Bowser uses to achieve his goal. As mentioned before, the Sticker Star is basically Star Haven, but we never see it or get any info on it. All we even know about it is that it exists. The Sticker Comet is the Star Rod. It grants wishes, but we never see it in action and it has little significance to the story. The Royal Stickers are the Star Spirits, but they don't talk, so they don't offer any insight to the Sticker Comet or the Sticker Star. They took away anything that made those concepts interesting, which results in practically no world building, no character, and no intrigue. Why should we care about these things? Although speaking of which, considering the similarities, what does that even mean for the Star Spirits? Do they even exist anymore?
Why is the comet filled with people's wishes a sticker?
Yeah.
And let's also talk about the fact that how does that fit in with the Star Spirits fulfilling wishes?
Because I also thought it kind of, in a way, it kind of sort of retcons the first game, because the whole point of the Star Rod was to grant wishes, and the Star Spirits were the
But apparently
guardians
now they're
of the
stored
Star
in a
Rod.
sticker comet?
Like, I mean, are there multiple wish MacGuffins in the Mario universe? Like,
You can only
already,
have
I'm
wishes
already-
if all 10 of the wish MacGuffins exist in complete separate stasis.
I mean, I guess so, according to this.
But the similarities don't end there. The Goomba Fortress is basically the Koopa Brothers' fortress. Much like Tootin' Koopa, the giant Pokey was hiding in some buried ruins in a desert that you need to reveal. Even if it isn't exactly the same, there's a gloomy forest and a haunted mansion full of booze. And the jungle world has a volcano in it where you fight a giant piranha plant. Oh, and Bowser has a flying castle that looks very similar to the one in 64, that you need to fly up to. This story is the same as 64's, but with a lot less in it. Less story, less characters, less world building, which makes it feel hollow. The world itself feels empty and arbitrary. The first two games did a good job making the world feel like a real place that people live in. Each place you went to had some kind of town full of NPCs to interact with and get an idea of what this world was like. But Sticker Star, you have one town, Decalburg. It's the Toad Town equivalent, but instead of a big town with many different and unique NPCs to talk to, instead of having a post office, a chef, a train station, a playroom, a pen for little oinks, a news sign that gets updated frequently, a garden, a dojo, a fortune teller, along with houses for the residents, there's practically nothing. There are a few things like a shop and a museum, but this is a tiny town. There's barely anything here. One part of it is dedicated to the Sling-A-Thing stand, and of course the festival grounds, but besides that, you have 3 houses. It's bare bones and doesn't feel like a real town. There is a dock as well, but it's considered separate from the town itself, unlike Toad Town, where it's with the rest of it. Oh, and let's not forget the Toad Town tunnels, a whole area underneath the town that has no equivalent in Sticker Star. And that isn't even bringing up Rogueport. Honestly, Decalburg shouldn't even be uttered in the same breath as Rogueport. They are worlds apart. There was so much care and detail put into Rogueport, so much personality. The town was practically a character in and of itself. Not to mention it had significance to the plot. Decalburg doesn't even hold a candle to Flipside. Now let's be fair, because there are some things Decalburg does right. The festival grounds start out wrecked, and as you progress through the game, more and more toads help out in cleaning and repairing it. After each chapter, more progress is made until it's finally back to what it used to be. It's nice to actually see progress being made, an actual change in the world. Although you're not the one doing it, it's the toads, but it's still something. There are a couple other positives I could bring up about Decalburg, but I'll save them for when they become more relevant. The point is, Decalburg lacks the charm, character, detail, and story significance of the previous main towns. You had to revisit those towns frequently, and each time there were new things to discover. There were more characters to interact with and events that tied into the plot. There's never really a reason to revisit Decalburg besides checking the progress of the festival grounds. And as mentioned before, this is the only town in the game. There are other NPCs around the world and occasionally a house, but no towns. No sense of community. No sense that anyone even really inhabits this world. In Chapter 1, there's a windmill, but nothing else around it, and a shop on top of a mountain. But why is there a shop up there? There are no towns anywhere nearby. How does he do business? In Super Paper Mario, you find a shop in space, but they make a joke about how it was a poor location for a shop. Chapter 2, aside from one living in an oasis, the only structures are ruins. So again, no one lives here. Chapter 3 has the Wiggler, but nothing else, and there's another shop in the middle of nowhere. Chapter 4 is a little better with this mansion and ski lift, but again, no one else seems to live around here. Oh hey, another shop far away from anyone who would use it. And Chapter 5 is once again full of ruins, though at least it has the spear guys who seem to live here. Oh, and a shop in a volcano. Seriously, why? Because no one inhabits these places, the random shops around make this world feel arbitrary. It doesn't feel like a real place. Now, in the previous games, each chapter had its own story to it, and they didn't necessarily have to connect to the main plot. Sticker Star kinda does this as well, but half-heartedly. They technically have a story, but it's like they went out of their way to have the least amount of story possible. Okay, Chapter 1. What's the story? Well, you're after the royal sticker, obviously, and a Goomba has it. He's in his fortress, so you go and take it from him. That's it. There isn't anything leading up to getting to their fortress. In 64, you are about to set off to find the first Star Spirit, but the Koopa Bros try to block your progress. You also have a detour where you help out Koopa Village. And once in the fortress, you learn that the Koopa Bros have been working the Bob-ombs too hard that they rebelled. This is a very simple story, but there is enough substance to make it enjoyable. Okay, how about Chapter 2? Well, same thing. There is no context to where the royal sticker is. You come across these scraps which are used to reveal the ruins the giant Pokey is in, but you only find out that's what's going on once you reveal it. No one talks about this Pokey or the ruins. Yeah, as if there were even characters to get that information from. There's nothing here. Remember in 64, when you learn about the dry ruins from Colorado? And then you go to the town and find out Mustafa is the only one who knows how to get to it. So you need to find out where he is. And once you do, it gives you the object to show you where the ruins are. Yeah, that was lame, wasn't it? Having characters give you information regarding what you're even doing here? With some world building as well? Yeah, who needs that? Context. There is no context to what's even going on in Sticker Star. I ask, why should I care about what the bosses are doing when it's not shown at all what they are even doing? It's the same for the others. Chapter 4 is a little better because it has one level with its own story, and part of another level that ties into that, but I'm actually going to save that for much later. But aside from that, there's nothing. Chapter 5, like again, there's nothing. You're going through the jungle and a volcano, but why?
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
Chapter 3 is a bit of an exception. You try to enter the forest, but the entrance is blocked by a big wiggler. This wiggler is here because he needs food. The forest is covered in poison goop, making the leaves inedible. Wait a second. Context? Because of Bowser, the forest got poisoned, which has an effect on someone who lives there? The goal of this chapter is to find out where the poison is coming from and stop it. And we have an actual character here who tells us that this is happening. And that's not all, because the Wiggler also got broken up into pieces by Kamek, and you have to help him recover his segments. You see how just a little bit of context, how a single character that tells you about what's happening, can actually make it more interesting? It's unfortunate that for gameplay reasons, most of the interest is killed, but that's for later. And ignoring that, this chapter is the only one with an actual story. Now, there technically is a bit more story to each chapter involving the bosses, but it's only retroactively. You only even learn of it once you've beaten the boss. And still, just like everything else, it's bare bones. Once you beat a boss, you get a short scene showing them getting a royal sticker, and maybe a bit of their motivation. Maybe. For the Goomba, the sticker appeared and one of them put it on, and that's it. For the Pokey, Kamek put the royal sticker on it and then buried the ruins. At least that was something, but it brings up some questions. Like, why did Kamek put it on a Pokey instead of wearing it himself? Or better yet, take it to Bowser's castle so Mario can't get there. It's still not even doing anything, just hiding in the ruins, but I guess its purpose is to guard the royal sticker. But again, if that's the only goal, then Kamek should have kept it instead of giving it to some random Pokey. The giant blooper was just dancing when the royal sticker fell on him, but at least he is causing the problems in that chapter by poisoning everything. Kamek also seems to have some control over it, but otherwise it doesn't appear to have any affiliation to Bowser. If it isn't with Bowser, how does Kamek control it? The Mr. Blizzard is the only one who seems to have a motivation. He was just a normal dude who was melting when once the royal sticker fell on him, he wished for a better body. When you beat him, he says, "I just made a wish on this shiny sticker, and then all this madness happened." What madness? Nothing happened. There are no problems in this chapter at all that relate to this guy. He's done nothing, yet the game presents him as doing something wrong. He just didn't want to die. He got his better body and was just chilling, and we killed him for it. It even said the royal sticker knew his wish was heartfelt. He did nothing wrong. And then there's Petey. So the volcano was erupting, and the spear guys were dancing to, I guess, please the volcano gods. But then, unrelated, a royal sticker appeared and Petey ate it. Petey had nothing to do with the volcano. It was already erupting before the royal sticker appeared, and we never stopped it from erupting. What is the point of all this? They try to have a little story with these bosses, but aside from one of them, they don't do anything. Only one of them has motivation, and he isn't causing any trouble. Only one of them is causing trouble, and he has no motivation. The rest don't have either. They're just there, not doing anything. Remember when Tubba Blubba was terrorizing the Boos? Remember when General Guy was commanding his troops to cause mischief in Toad Town? Remember when Huff and Puff was blocking out the sun that the plants of Flower Fields need to survive? Remember when we cared about stopping the bad guy because it was actually doing something? Now, to be fair, not all of 64's bosses were actively doing something. Toot and Koopa, the Lava Piranha, and the Crystal King were all just kind of existing, but at least it was clear that their purpose was to guard the Star Spirit. And let's not forget that all of the bosses in Thousand Year Door were causing trouble, giving you a reason to fight them. Same for the most part with Super Paper Mario as well. There is no conflict in all but one of these chapters, so there is no reason to care. Now, there is something I'll give this game genuine credit for. Not just for something it did right, but for something it has over the previous games, specifically Thousand Year Door. It showed just how dangerous the royal stickers are in the wrong hands. In Thousand Year Door, the crystal stars are powerful artifacts. But aside from when Grubba used one to sap energy out of other fighters and buff himself up, we don't see anyone use their power. Hooktail ate one of them, Lord Crump got the one in Chapter 2 but didn't use it, Dupless had one but again didn't use it, Cortez didn't even know what it was, and the one Pennington had was just hidden away. Not even Grotus uses the one he has. It was a missed opportunity that they didn't explore this more. In Sticker Star, each of the main bosses is wearing a royal sticker, and they gain power from it. So we see how dangerous these things are. The Goomba fuses himself with the other Goombas to become more powerful. The Blooper starts gushing out poison, and Mr. Blizzard gains this massive frozen body. Now the Pokey and Petey just get stronger, I guess, but the point still stands. We see how dangerous and corrupting these things are. Now, they obviously could have gone farther by having all of them use their power to cause trouble, and the whole corrupting influence part is really only shown with the Goomba, though since all of them keep talking about being shiny, there is obviously some kind of influence the royal stickers have on their minds, just it didn't go that far. But credit where credit is due. Now, let's talk about characters. The previous games are known for their numerous, unique, and charming characters. This game, however, is very much lacking in both quality and quantity when it comes to the characters. Let's start with the general NPCs, or should I say, Toad. The only NPCs you will encounter that aren't the Wiggler and I guess the Sniffit or Whiffit host are Toads.
Because this game is Toads, Toads, and more Toads.
Oops, all Toads.
Oh, no, you should have waited until you opened the fucking cabinet, damn it.
Oh, damn, that would have been perfect.
Oops, all Toads.
Is there an instance in this game that isn't about Toads?
In the previous games, you had a variety of different species as NPCs, including species that are typically enemies like Goombas and Koopas. Not here. They are all enemies. Every single one of them. Even situations where the enemies aren't actively attacking you, you can't talk to them. This takes a lot away from the world. Having these other species not all be Bowser's minions, well, made them feel like another species rather than just enemies. It made them feel more real, and it expanded Mario's world. But we don't have that anymore. Even the Toads are worse since most of them have basically the same personality. Some of them are a little more distinct, but only by a little. You won't have any Toads like Zest T here. Oh, speaking of Zest T, no one, absolutely no one besides characters from previous Mario games have names. Every Toad is just Toad, no name given. All the Goombas are just Goombas. All the Shy Guys are just Shy Guys. Even the Wiggler, who is an actual character with an arc, is just named Wiggler. This, more so than anything else, makes this world feel fake. These aren't individuals with any amount of independence. They might as well all be a hive mind. Remember how each resident of Rogueport had a name and personality? Remember how that made the place feel more real and interesting? Don't you miss that? Don't you think this would be better if it was more like that? I didn't find the residents of Flipside to be all that interesting, but they are still leagues better than anything in this game. They have names, they have unique personalities, and the Flopside variants are mirrored versions of them with mirrored personalities, which was really cool. This is just nothing. But now, for the actual important characters. Mario's still a plank of wood moving on. Okay, I made that joke in the Super review, but unlike there, I actually could just stop here. How interesting Mario is wholly dependent on the story he's putting. If the story is nothing, then Mario is nothing. Mario was more interesting in the previous games because of the situations he was put in, but because there are no interesting situations here, there's nothing to make him more interesting. And that has a bigger impact here than it would in previous games, because Mario is mostly alone. Aside from Kirsty, he has no one else around to talk for him, no other personalities to add interest. Although speaking of Kirsty, she is your one and only companion in this adventure, acting in a similar fashion to Tippy from the last game. But unlike Tippy, Kirsty is a dreadful character. She has to be one of the most unlikable Mario characters of all time. From the very start, she has this tendency to scold Mario for anything and everything, even if he's done nothing wrong. She constantly has a condescending tone. She hides behind being a lady, she's impatient, and you can't even save her without being yelled at. She's just a very unpleasant character. But that's not what makes her a bad character. An unlikable character doesn't have to be a bad character. You can have good unlikable characters. Ratchet, from the first Ratchet and Clank, is selfish, rude, and generally unlikable. But he's a good character. And the reason for that is that he develops. At the start, he is not that unpleasant. He's snarky and a bit selfish, but still willing to help out and has a good relationship with Clank. But once he's betrayed by Captain Quark, his tone immediately shifts.
This is not like you.
What do you know about me? You've spent this whole time looking for Quark. You don't know anything about me.
I know that you will do the right thing.
Well, right now the thing I want to do is find Quark.
He straight up becomes an asshole and treats Clank like trash, constantly insulting him.
Yeah? Well, if you're so smart, how come you fell for Quark's stupid trick?
And threatening to sell him for scrap.
As soon as I find Quark, I'm selling you for scrap.
The only reason he even is still doing anything other than trying to find Quark is because he needs Clank to even start any ship he finds. At this point, Ratchet is very unpleasant and unlikable. But he doesn't stay this way. He slowly begins to realize the gravity of the situation.
Now this guy's gonna blow up an entire planet? That's just mean.
During this, his tone changes again. He becomes less selfish, no longer acting purely out of rage to get revenge on Quark, but now realizing that Drek is destroying everything and he's the only one who can stop him.
Look, maybe you were right. This is a lot bigger than you or me. I was really selfish focusing on Quark.
And it all comes together when it's revealed that Drek is targeting his home planet next.
It shouldn't have taken me this long to see it. Drek is going to find out what happens when you mess with my home.
Ratchet develops as a character, and that's what makes him a good character despite being unlikable. In fact, him being unlikable is what leads to him to become a good character. The remake of this game took away that aspect of Ratchet, and he just became boring and rather generic. Taking away the unlikability of Ratchet and him developing out of it takes away a lot from his character. Kirsty isn't like Ratchet, however. She never develops. She stays the same the whole game, so she never becomes a good character. Instead, she just continues to annoy the player every time she opens her mouth. And because she never develops, at the end when she sacrifices herself to defeat Bowser, when she thanks you and apologizes for forcing you into this adventure, and reflecting on it before saying goodbye all the while slowly being peeled away, it is unearned. This should be an emotional moment, but because Kirsty never became likable, it falls flat. And at the end, when Mario wishes for Kirsty to come back, it feels insulting. Imagine if Ratchet never developed. He continued to be an asshole from beginning to end. Would this scene feel earned at all?
My arm appears to be badly damaged.
Ah, you'll be all right. Hey, tin can! Where do you think you're going? We, still need to fix that arm.
No, it wouldn't. This scene works because of his development, because we've seen him grow as a character. This scene is the payoff of his growth. Kirsty has no growth, so the payoff falls flat. Oh, but her unlikability isn't limited to the story, but I'll get to that in due time. And that's all for the main characters. There are no partners, not even half-baked equivalents like the Pixels, nor are there extra characters. It's just Mario and Kirsty the whole game. Luigi is just a background Easter egg and he never talks. So they broke the streak of Luigi having a better role each game. The only other character worth mentioning that isn't a villain is the Wiggler. He actually has a bit of an arc, sort of, but it's still not the most interesting. So you find him near the entrance of the forest to find food because the poison is spread everywhere else, and he has nothing to eat. You agree to help, but then the blooper takes him away. You find his house, and he's just ahead now. The bloopers took him to Kamek, who detached his segments, and then they ran off, leaving him as just ahead. You know, this is some kind of body horror stuff happening here. Too bad they don't do anything interesting with it. Anyways, each segment seems to have a mind of its own, and they run off all across the forest. So you run all around the forest looking for them, and eventually get them all back. Now that Wiggler is back to normal, he helps get you to the source of the poison. Now at the end of the game, Wiggler becomes a Flutter. He also changes his name to Flutter since we can't have actual names for characters. But anyways, he once again helps you by flying you up to Bowser Jr.'s airship. And that's all there is to him. So his arc is him growing up and being more responsible, I guess. But was he irresponsible before? It's not like it's because of him the poison is here, or that he could have prevented it but didn't. He didn't even know where it was coming from. Well, what is he supposed to do? Kirsty and Kamek treat him like a child. But what about him is childlike? He's not any more childlike than any of the nameless toads around. Do the segments have his same personality? I guess they act childish, but he doesn't do any of that stuff himself. When you're heading out to clear the poison, he talks about how he thinks he should be more responsible, but again, how is he irresponsible? And after he becomes Flutter, they act like he's grown so much, but aside from physically growing, how does he mentally grow? Because I assume that's really what they mean by growing in this context. And as far as I could tell, he hasn't really changed. He was always willing to help you. He's still the same person. He says he wants to return the favor by escorting you to wherever you need to go, and Kirsty says, wow, you really are all grown up now. But this is what he did last time. What changed? But that's all there is to Wiggler. The only chapter that has a story, and there's not much to the central character of it. Peach is in this game, I think. She was pretty good in 64, and she got better with each game, and her appearance in Super was one of the best versions of Peach. So of course, she barely even talks. She doesn't say anything in the intro, at all. She just gets kidnapped. Unlike the other games, you don't see what's happening to her in between chapters. So just like your average Mario platformer, she's just a damsel. There's no greater point to her being kidnapped like in Thousand Year Door or Super, just the typical Mario plot. There are no Peach sections, and you don't see her again until the very end of the game, where she talks about wishes, and it's just not interesting, especially by this point. She was an actual character before, and having those Peach sections added a lot to not only her character and the characters she's interacted with, but added a lot to the story. Imagine those games without those parts. You'd be missing a lot. All they did to the plot and characters was regress. They just took stuff away and replaced it with nothing. Peach is just a MacGuffin now, not a character. As for villains, well, I already said basically all there is about the main bosses. They aren't really characters themselves. Half of them just say the word shiny over and over again. But besides them, Bowser Jr. makes his debut in the series. Too bad it had to be this game. He doesn't do much. He wants your stickers, so he stops your progress early on, and you beat him up. He appears again to attack you when you get a boat, but it's just a repeat of the first time. He wants your stickers. And he appears for a final time at the end, trying to stop you from reaching Bowser. But that's it for him. Such a waste. But then there's Kamek. Now, he does do more, but still not a lot. He attacks you on a few occasions. He's the last line of defense before getting to Bowser. He is trying to impede your progress throughout the game. He tries to take away one of the comet pieces. He hides the tower that the Pokey is in, and a couple other similar things. He broke up the Wiggler because he knew he could take Mario to the blooper. It's nice to have an antagonist that actively tries to get in your way, but he only appears like once per chapter, except for Chapter 5. And he doesn't do much. Chapter 3 is the most substantial thing he did. It feels like he's supposed to fill in the Junior Troopa role, but Junior Troopa was constantly hunting you, and you fought him every time he appeared, and he evolved his strategy. You know, I've never really been a fan of Kamek, and this game is probably the biggest reason why. It really didn't help that he replaced Cammy. What happened to Cammy? She was great, she bounced off Bowser really well, but ever since Super, she's just gone. What was wrong with Cammy that they stopped using her? But speaking of Bowser, this is one of the most disappointing parts of the story. Bowser doesn't talk at all. He doesn't have a single line of dialogue this whole game. Bowser was one of the funniest characters in the first 3 games. Adding a more comedic element to Bowser went a long way to make him a far more enjoyable character than what was usually presented in the main series by then. Bowser initially was a generic monster. They had been slowly adding more to his character as the years went on, but for a while it was the RPGs that gave Bowser a personality. His role in those first 3 games were fantastic, and they stripped that all away. He's just like how he is in New Super Mario Bros. Just a big monster who you only really see at the end just to beat up. No talking, no banter, no personality. Just the big bad you need to beat up. Ugh. Now you don't need dialogue for a character to have personality. Just look at characters like King K. Rool with his various personas, or Robotnik with his different machines. Even Bowser to an extent in the older games, though I find he didn't have nearly as strong of a personality as the other examples. And while the 3D games did develop him more, the 2D ones kept it basic and static. Point is, Bowser doesn't have much personality outside of the most generic and boring interpretations of the character. Even if they managed to give him more personality without dialogue, that's not how they handled him in the previous games. So it would still be disappointing, and a regression of the character. Making Bowser a mute does nothing but hurt the game. There is no benefit at all. One thing I've heard some people say is that even though the story is bare bones, the writing is still in line with the previous games. However, it falls short in that aspect as well. When people say this game has good writing, what they are saying is that it's funny. But there's more to good writing than just humor. The previous games knew how to balance the comedic elements with serious elements. They were very funny games, but when it was time to get serious, all jokes were put away. Now, serious moments could still have funny parts in them, like when Grottus is threatening to kill Peach if Mario gets closer, but then Bowser falls through the roof and knocks him out. But again, it's all in the balance, knowing when and how to do it. These games got pretty serious. There's nothing funny about Peach getting possessed and the world getting covered in a shroud of darkness, or about an entire dimension being erased. Now, Paper Mario 64 was really lighthearted. It didn't get as serious as the next 2 games. But it wasn't just joke after joke. It still took itself seriously when necessary. Sticker Star hardly has any of these serious moments. There are some here and there, but they are few and far between, not to mention they don't last long. Although even those serious moments aren't taken all that seriously for the most part. The Wiggler getting split apart is a somewhat serious moment for this game, but it's still played for laughs. I guess hearing about Mr. Blizzard's backstory is a bit serious, but it's half-baked. The most serious moment is when Kirsty sacrifices herself, but it falls flat because of Kirsty's character, as well as because the rest of the game was all levity. Suddenly trying to add some gravity to the situation is a bit jarring. The game didn't take itself seriously the entire time, so why should I take it seriously now? Now the game can be funny at times, but the previous games, in addition to having actual stories that are taken seriously with rather dark moments, are also way funnier than Sticker Star. Nothing in this game is as funny as reading Luigi's or Bowser's diary in 64. Nothing is as funny as all the Bowser sections or reading about Luigi's adventures in the Waffle Kingdom and Thousand Year Door. For a game that's so focused on comedy, they took the 2 funniest characters from the previous games, Bowser and Luigi, and gave them 0 dialogue.
No talking.
There are so many hilarious moments in those first 3 games, and there is nothing in Sticker Star that comes close to even half of it. How about the time you need to bribe Gourmet Guy with cake and he freaks out about how good it is? And then you do it again as Peach. Or the time Junior Troopa swims to an island to fight you, but only gets there when you leave, so he has to swim all the way back. And only after losing the fight does he realize he could have flown instead. How about when Lord Crump gets into an argument with the puny elder when he's trying to escape while the timer for a bomb is counting down, and it gets smaller the more he's yelled at? Or when Fractale gets zapped by Dementio and he starts malfunctioning like crazy? Or how about everything to do with Francis? Yeah, none of that was nearly as funny as the same damn paper joke Sticker Star constantly uses. There's one joke that Sticker Star keeps falling back on, and it's that everyone and everything is made of paper. And it just isn't funny. Because all the joke is paper. That's the joke. paper. Them constantly making paper puns is just not funny, and they do it a lot. It does lighten up as the game goes on, but it doesn't go away. They don't do anything with the concept of them being made of paper to build a joke from. The joke is that they are made of paper. This toad bumps into you and gets a crease on his head. Then it happens again later.
It is even funnier a second time.
Now, there is one area where the writing is actually really good, the museum. Specifically, the descriptions for the things. I'll obviously go over what these things are later, but the descriptions for them are rather funny. They are mostly repeating the joke that the toads don't know what the things are. But there's more to work with that than just bringing attention to the fact that everyone is paper. And speaking of paper, some of these descriptions actually have good paper jokes, because they rely on the fact that everyone is made of paper, and they build off that, instead of paper being the punchline. Friction tests conducted on this flotation transport resulted in one of the worst toad pileups in memory. Every scientist was stuck to this thing.
That's actually kind of funny, like playing on the whole they are made out of paper thing, that they would be stuck to a static balloon. It's kind of pathetic and sad, and god damn it.
The things really do have the best writing in the game. That's way better than what they usually do, and of course, it's an optional part of the game. The game can be funny at times, but that's all the writing is, funny at times. There's no drama, emotion, or investment. The game doesn't take itself seriously, so neither can we. The story is completely bare bones. There's hardly any characters, and the few we do have are as shallow as a puddle. The first 3 games weren't just fun games and nothing else. They had legitimately good stories with loads of characters and depth, and Sticker Star completely ignored that part of the series. It stripped out the story and replaced it with nothing. It's the bare minimum in a series that always strived to be greater. And I don't need to tell you why that's not only disappointing, but straight up bad. This game has a bad story. The little story that even is here is bad, with no world building, no explanation for a lot of stuff, and even contradictions. This is beyond just not having a story. I'm quite confident in saying that this is the worst Mario story. Bet you never thought someone could talk about this game's story for this long. With that out of the way, let's move on to the presentation. Visually, this game is fairly well done. It's disadvantaged being a 3DS game, but for a 3DS game, it looks quite nice. This game, more than any other game, really focuses on paper for its art style. Everything looks like it's made of paper or cardboard, even the water, and it does an effective job at it. Now, the 3DS does hold back the potential this art style has, but for what they could do, they did a good job. Now, this hard shift to make everything look like paper has been controversial, and it does bother me as well. I'm not inherently opposed to having everything look like paper. What I am opposed to is paper becoming the sole identity of Paper Mario. Yes, paper is in the name, but that was never an important aspect of the series. The only reason the first game was even called Paper Mario was because the characters were 2D while the environments were 3D, so the characters looked like they were as flat as paper. Aside from a couple visual gags, there wasn't much in the way of paper. It was just a cute art style choice, nothing more. Now, Thousand Year Door did add a lot of paper effects to transitions, but again, it wasn't supposed to be literally paper. You do get paper transformations, but they are curses. They are not natural abilities that anyone can just do, because you aren't actually made of paper. So while yes, it's called Paper Mario, and Thousand Year Door had a lot of paper in it, it wasn't its identity. When you think of those first 3 games, you don't think paper. You think of all the other elements. The story, the characters, the gameplay, all that, not paper. Now again, I'm not inherently opposed to this art style choice, but because of the fact that they focused so hard at making paper the game's identity to the point where everything else that made up the previous game's identities was removed, I can't appreciate it at all. And even then, it's not half as interesting as Thousand Year Door. The paper transitions were pretty charming and creative. Sticker Star doesn't even do that outside of entering a level or returning to the map. In Thousand Year Door, you had pages turning, ripping, or being blown away. When you go into a pipe, this happens. But in Sticker Star, it's just a fade to black. You want to talk about creative use of paper? Look at Hooktail, or Magnus von Grapple, or Cortez, or the Shadow Queen. There is nothing this creative about how Sticker Star uses paper. Most of the bigger bosses are just like everyone else, and the more unique ones aren't as interesting anyways. Now you might say the problem isn't the art style itself, but instead the execution as well as the other elements being lacking. And you're right, it isn't a binary choice. Having this art style doesn't have to come at the cost of everything else. But to me, it's really hard to appreciate what it is because it came at the cost of all the other elements that made the series. It feels like Flanderization. They looked at Paper Mario and decided paper was the most important part, and ignored everything else. So now, its identity is just paper, rather than all the different elements combined. But, putting aside all biases, the art style is mostly handled well, if not as creatively as Thousand Year Door. But it is held back by the 3DS, so it can't shine with what it is doing as much as it could. Okay, now for visuals that aren't paper related. And this is where it just straight up drops the ball. Let's talk about theming. We've got a grassland, a desert, a forest, a snowy area, a jungle, and a volcano. This truly is New Super Paper Mario. They went for the most boring, standard, and sanitized Mario themes with little to nothing added onto them. And this game came out in 2012. This was the height of the New Super Mario Bros. Series. It came out days before New Mario U. People were, and still are, tired of this. I'm tired of this. Now, why is this a problem? Because it's boring to constantly recycle the same themes over and over again. You want to see new things, explore new environments, but it's the same as the last game, and the game before that, and the game before that, which was the same as a game from 1988. It no longer feels like a new game, a new world to explore. It feels like going through the motions. I talked about it in my Super Paper Mario review, but to me, Mario represents pure creativity and imagination, and these packaged Mario themes are the antithesis of pure creativity and imagination. There's nothing creative about taking the same theme with no alterations and slapping it into the game, because that's just what Mario games are like. Is it always a problem to reuse themes? No, it's not. Reusing familiar aesthetics can be a powerful tool. In Donkey Kong Country, you spend the entire game on Donkey Kong Isle. As you progress, a pirate ship slowly approaches the island. DK Isle is the center focus of the map, with the Gangplank Galleon behind it, and that is where the final battle with K. Rool takes place. Now, in Donkey Kong Country 2, you start on that same ship you ended the last game on, and now the map has the Gangplank Galleon as the center focus, with DK Isle in the background. Similar imagery, but it's reversed. And once you get to the main map, Crocodile Isle, once again the map is the focus, while the ship is in the background. Similar imagery, but the meaning behind it changed. In the first game, it showed an invading force coming to your home. In the second, you are the invading force, coming from the same boat that invaded your home. This truly is Diddy's Conquest. You see what can be accomplished when you reuse themes properly. How about another example? In Donkey Kong Country Returns, you once again are only on DK Isle, and you go through all the different areas like before. But in Tropical Freeze, the Snowmads have invaded and threw you from your home, so you spend the whole game making your way back. And when you get back, the whole island is frozen over, and now each level represents a different area from Returns, but now covered in snow and ice. This is incredibly effective because you saw what this place was like in its natural state in Returns. That's what the island is supposed to be like, and now you've seen what these invaders have done to it. It gives you even more drive to get rid of them. This is masterful reusal of themes. Both of these examples took what was familiar and recontextualized them, which not only kept it fresh, but enhances the experience by playing both. Unlike the new Mario series, where playing them all makes the experience worse because they don't do anything with the reused themes. If it wasn't obvious, I love me some Donkey Kong. But how about an example that isn't DK? Chapter 1 of Paper Mario is a grassy area that connects to a village of Koopas, and you make your way to a castle. Chapter 1 of Thousand Year Door is a grassy area that connects to a village of Koopas, and you make your way to a castle. Familiar aesthetics, but they use it to show how much grander this adventure is. It shows you a familiar area, but instead of fighting some incompetent Koopa ninjas, you fight a dragon that's shown how dangerous it is with all the bones around its castle. It also plays with expectations. It begins with something similar to how the first game began, and you might expect the next chapter to do the same, but instead that is when the game gets really creative with its themes. Sticker Star does nothing like this with these themes. It doesn't use them to recontextualize anything about them. It doesn't use them to compare or contrast with anything. It doesn't use them to play with expectations. It uses them because New Super Mario Bros. Used them. Because Mario needs to be sanitized and familiar. Do you see how this is disappointing? Do you see how this is a downgrade from the previous games? Now, there are occasionally some more unique things in these worlds, like there's a windmill in the grassland, and that's about it. The desert has a Yoshi Sphinx, which would be cool if that wasn't a thing in other games before this. The forest has a dark and gloomy atmosphere, which is neat, but that's about it. You might think the poison is unique, but no, that comes from New Super Mario Bros. There's a ski lift at the snow area. Oh, and no, I'll talk about that later.
Discuss me later.
The jungle has a lot of ruins in it, which at least makes it stand out somewhat, but it doesn't really do much with them. There's like no lore to the ruins, so it's just kinda there. Still, it's something at least. This game is so bland with its theming. What is there to say about this? Yeah, there might be some occasional neat stuff like the hieroglyphics of ancient Toads and Koopas. That's legitimately cool, but they're so underplayed, and this all contributes to this world feeling arbitrary. It doesn't feel like a real place at all. Now for possibly the worst aspect of the visuals, the character design. You want to talk about sanitized? Oh boy. You know how like characters in the previous games had unique designs? Yeah, you know Goombario wasn't just a normal Goomba, he had a hat and square teeth. Very minimal and simple changes. Well, even that is too much for this game, let alone all the other characters of any species who had more unique designs that made them stand out. Remember how even the damn toads had different designs? Not here. Every single toad is the same generic toad design from the dawn of time. The only difference is the color. That's it. The only thing that would allow you to identify a specific toad from the rest is what color he is. And that doesn't help because there are multiples of each color. You can't tell anyone apart from each other. In the festival grounds, there's a toad crying in the middle. Eventually, he gains the motivation to help everyone else restore it. Now tell me, which toad is he? Imagine trying to find Waldo, but everyone is Waldo. Except that doesn't work, because there was a page where everyone was Waldo, and there was still a way to find the real Waldo. You can tell it's him because he's missing a shoe. This is bad character design. Characters have design so they can be recognized and connected with. How can you connect with any of these toads when you can't even tell them apart, and they don't even have names? You could talk to the same toad multiple times and think you've talked to multiple toads. You could talk to 5 different toads and think they're all the same toad. Sometimes they try making them distinct with facial expressions or animations, but that's kind of ridiculous. Oh, you can tell this toad's occupation is shopkeep by the way he holds his hands together. The sailor toad can't even have a sailor outfit. Not even a sailor hat. Seriously? What happened to the female toads? There are no female toads at all. Toads aren't allowed to have unique clothes, with 2 exceptions. One is the toad in the Oasis, but even he is a normal toad before he gets there. And the other, well...
We get there when we get there!
You'd think the creased toad would also be an exception. You run into this guy early on and he gets a crease on his head after bumping into you. Oh man, a defining design trait. And you even bump into this guy again later. Except, no you don't. That's a different toad. A fact I didn't realize until the credits put both of them together. Look at all these characters. Toad, Toad,
Folded
Toad.
Wait, so they were 2 different people.
Oh my god, Folded Toad 1 and Folded Toad 2.
They were 2 different people. So how are you supposed to know which one is which when they show up?
Which is which? Who knows? Have you ever heard of the silhouette test? It's a general guideline of character design that each character should be recognizable from just their silhouette. You can't do that in Sticker Star. Look at Thousand Year Door's credits. They have silhouettes of all the characters and you can tell them apart. If this was in Sticker Star, it would just be the same toad repeated 100 times. Now look, the previous games weren't perfect with this. There were many times the general townsfolk of any town only had one design, but the important characters always had unique designs. This was only relegated to the generic NPCs, and even they often had names, and this once again contributes to the world not feeling real. These are not people. They might as well just be signs you read from. Now this problem isn't exclusive to the toads. Every other species has one design. There is one Goomba design, one Koopa design, etc. The leader of the Goombas is just a normal Goomba with the royal sticker. That's it. The giant Pokey is just a giant Pokey. But aside from everything looking the same, they've also changed how they've looked from previous games. The unique designs for enemies like Koopas, Hammer Brothers, or Boos are made to be closer to how they look in every other Mario game. They've scrubbed away the designs unique to Paper Mario, robbing it from its identity even more. Any unique character with a unique design is gone, even Kammy Koopa. You want to know why I think they cut Kammy Koopa and replaced her with Kamek? Because Kammy has a unique design, and Kamek is just the generic Magic Koopa design, and we aren't allowed to have unique designs around here anymore. It's just lame. Everything has been sanitized to an obnoxious degree. The only unique character design in the game is Kirsty. She's the only original character here, and isn't that just a lovely trade-off? On a technical level, the graphics, while held back by the hardware, are still well done, but everything else about the visuals has been squeezed dry of anything unique or interesting, and we are left with the same damn milquetoast Mario aesthetic they've been using for New Super Mario Bros. Only difference is it's paper this time, and that's pretty damn disappointing. But now for the music, and this is where it gets a little complicated for me. Let's just start off by saying the soundtrack is rather good. In fact, this is the most consistently good thing in the game. It'd be easy to say the music is the best thing about the game. It's different from the previous game's soundtracks. The last two went for more of an electronic sound to them, but this game goes for a more jazzy feel, more in line with the more modern Mario soundtracks. Not a bad thing, though I do prefer the style of the previous games. I guess to give some highlights, I like the dark atmosphere of the poisoned forest. I quite like both Kamek's character theme, and boss theme. I guess I can give you a peek at the Enigmansion with its music. Surprisingly, what might be my favorite track in the game is the intermission theme. It's just a short and simple remix of the Mario 3 King theme. But something about it I just like. Of course it would be a Mario 3 remix though. Given this game is very New Super Mario Bros., it worships Mario 3 just like them. Oh hey, it's the Mario 3 airship theme. Again. I was never really a fan of the airship theme, so I'm kinda tired of it constantly coming back. Right, where was I? Oh yeah, soundtrack is pretty good, but unfortunately, I have a hard time appreciating it. This is where the complication comes from. I don't have any real complaints about the soundtrack as its own thing. It's good, genuinely. None of the issues I have anything to do with the music itself. It's what it's attached to. I can't appreciate a lot of it because I associate it with this game. I can't hear the battle theme without being reminded of how I feel about the combat. I can't listen to this title theme without thinking of all the damage this game has done. Yeah, it's well composed, pretty catchy too, and I rather like this part of it. But I also hate it. Those first few notes just bring back all the bad memories. Da 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 da. This fucking title screen music. And I don't want to be unfair to this soundtrack, because it is a good soundtrack. But I'm also not gonna lie about how I feel about it. It takes some effort for me to listen to anything from this game and just enjoy it on its own merits. Even when I'm able to do that, I still vastly prefer the first 3 games' soundtracks, so it really doesn't do much for me anyways. Now, I do have some complaints about the soundtrack that isn't just personal bias, but also, as I said, it isn't really a problem with the individual pieces, it's a problem with what it's attached to. Because this game is so very nothing in a lot of aspects, there's really no emotional attachment to the music here. I talked about how the music was really emotional in Super Paper Mario, but that's because of the story it's attached to. They had this big emotional story, and the music had to fit that. Sticker Star doesn't have that, so the music isn't like that. Now, music doesn't need a strong narrative attached to it to be emotional, or to get an emotional response or connection from the audience. But if there is nothing in the game that this music can attach itself to give an emotional response, then it just leaves a hollow feeling. All it will ever be is just pretty good music on its own, which isn't bad, but video game music is best when it is not only good on its own, but when it's perfectly synced with the rest of the game. But it's clear that these tracks were mostly made to fit the generic Mario themes. They made a track to fit a desert. It's a track that does indeed fit a desert. It did what it was intended to do and did it well. But because the only defining trait of the desert is that it's a desert, the music just feels hollow. I keep bringing up New Super Mario Bros., but for good reason. The music in those games is just to suit the basic theme of the area and nothing else. There isn't anything more that sticks out, it's just the desert theme. This is why I find the forest music to be better, because it isn't just forest music, it's dark and gloomy forest music. So it's made to fit that specific atmosphere instead of forest like the new Mario games do. I'm not that good at discussing music, which is why I usually just let the soundtrack do the talking for me. So I hope this made any sense. The point is, while the individual pieces that make up the soundtrack are well made, and quite good, the soundtrack as a whole left a very underwhelming impression on me because of what it's attached to. I haven't even gotten to the gameplay yet, and there's already so much wrong with this game. Even if the gameplay was just as good as Thousand Year Door, this would still be a pretty disappointing sequel. But the gameplay isn't as good as Thousand Year Door. Not even close. Oh boy, I have yet to really begin discussing why this game sucks. Super Paper Mario changed the gameplay so it wasn't an RPG anymore, but instead a 2D platformer. Sticker Star completely ditched everything Super did, reverting back to the first games in some ways, but making even more of a departure in many others. No longer are you mostly restricted to 2D, it's back to 3D in a similar way to the first two games, but aside from surface level similarities, this is not like those first two games at all. To start on a positive note though, the basic controls are sound. They feel practically identical to Thousand Year Door. Once again, you can walk, jump, and use your hammer. One improvement is you can swing your hammer in 4 directions, including up and down, which is very nice. Other than that is the extent of your moveset. You can interact with things in the environment as usual, though mostly by hitting them with the hammer. The main thing you will interact with are stickers. Stickers are tied to practically every aspect of this game. There are a few ways to find stickers, but the main way is just simply finding them stuck to walls, and you collect them by peeling them off. Having to peel a sticker off a wall may seem charming at first, but it quickly loses that charm when you need to do it for every single sticker. When you collect a sticker, it goes into your album, which is your inventory. At the start, you have 2 pages in your album. Each page is made up of 15 squares, meaning you can fit a maximum of 15 stickers per page. 30 stickers is not a lot in this game, but that's not all. Stickers are always in a square shape, but they come in 3 sizes. The small ones are the most common, but there are medium and large size stickers as well, and it makes inventory management hell. The large stickers are 2x2 squares. They take up 4 slots, which makes sense. The medium stickers, however, are 1.5 by 1.5, which causes so many problems. They also take up 4 squares. Now, stickers aren't entirely restricted by a grid in the album, so you can put small stickers next to medium stickers, but the issue comes when a page is full and has a medium sticker in it. There's empty space that you can't put anything in, and no amount of inventory management will help. You can manually sort your inventory or auto-sort it, but neither will help in this situation. You can't have all 15 slots on a page full while also having a medium sticker in it. The large stickers are obnoxious because of how much space they take up, but at least they take up every inch of that space. Now, as you progress through the game, you do get more album pages, up to 8 pages by the end of the game, which does help, but it doesn't alleviate the issues. You'll still have these empty parts you can't fill, and you'll still constantly be running out of room. I can see what they were trying to do, have inventory management and sorting be an important part of the game, but it wasn't handled all that well. It reminds me of Resident Evil 4's inventory. That game has what I consider to be the best inventory system in any game I've played, while Sticker Stars is one of the worst. They are similar in idea, but in execution they are worlds apart. In Resident Evil 4 you have the attaché case. Everything that isn't a key item or treasure gets put here. Guns, ammo, grenades, and healing items. These items come in different sizes, like Sticker Star, but unlike Sticker Star they also come in different shapes. The inventory is grid-based, but here all items are made up of full squares. There are no half squares, so the items fit better no matter their shape or size. In addition, when you upgrade the size of it, it makes it bigger instead of adding another page. Even at its smallest size, it offers more room than the very restrictive 15 squares a single page in Sticker Star has. All this makes managing and sorting your inventory an actual enjoyable part of the game. Trying to place items in good places that make room for more items, and since they are in more shapes than just squares, you can rotate them. You can combine herbs to make room instead of having to delete items. You also have this other grid for placing items temporarily while you sort the rest to find room. This inventory is so good, and Sticker Star fails to recapture what made it good. Welp, it's time. No turning back. Might as well get this part out of the way now. Sticker Star brings back turn-based battles. However, while there are similar aspects, the core of it is changed. Like the first two games, you can see enemies on the overworld, which means you can avoid them, though the range of awareness varies a lot more than previous games. Some only cover a small area, like under a line of blocks, and some just don't seem to notice you at all. And others will relentlessly pursue you if you even step close to their territory. You can still perform a first strike, as well as get first striked by the enemy, though if the enemy hits you with a projectile, it just does damage without starting a battle. However, unlike Thousand Year Door, you can't perform an action command when doing it, and it does not have the full power of the attack. Let's set the tone for this battle system by talking about a very simple feature: fleeing from battle. Such a small thing, how could they possibly mess it up? Well, in the previous games, when you select Run, you get this action command where you have this meter that is depleting. Mashing the button will make the meter fill. The goal is to have as much of the meter filled as possible so that the arrow will land on a filled part, which results in a successful run. There is luck involved in running, but it's mostly determined by how well you mash. In fact, if you mash well enough, you can guarantee a successful run. Now, running is not something the game encourages. They want you to engage with the battle system, so if you run, your punishment is losing some money. It's generally worth losing some money to run in most situations, but it's still a punishment for not fighting the enemy. In Sticker Star, when you select Run, you don't have this meter appear at all, but mashing causes the screen to go dark. If it gets dark, you run. If not, you don't. Seems simple, right? Wrong. It's very inconsistent. You could barely mash and the screen goes dark fast, or you could be mashing like crazy and it just doesn't work. I spent an awful long time trying to figure out what I was doing wrong, but then I found out mashing does nothing. Mashing doesn't seem to influence if you run away or not at all. Instead, whether or not you run is up to luck. The game decides if you run. You could not push anything and still run from battle. So why does the screen go dark when you mash? Well, it seems it only does this to show you if the run will be successful early, which is completely pointless. Why not just have you run immediately if it's successful, or fall immediately if it's not? Why waste time like that and make me think mashing does something when it doesn't? Was there anything wrong with how running worked in the previous games? But that's not all. If you successfully run from an enemy, that enemy disappears. They'll come back if you leave the screen, but it doesn't matter. Running from an enemy gives practically the same results as defeating it, which means the game is encouraging you to do so. They managed to mess up the very simple option of running from battle. But don't worry, this is bad in more ways that relate to other poor decisions that I'll get to when relevant. As for the actual battle mechanics, well, you don't have any partners, which means Mario is alone, and because he's alone, he can only perform one attack at a time. This already takes a substantial amount of strategy away from the game. You have a plethora of options in the first two games that just don't exist here. First off, all the variety of moves is drastically cut down because of this. There were so many different kinds of attacks or buffs the partners provided that Mario couldn't do himself, and there was a lot of strategy in which combination of moves he would use. In Thousand Year Door, you could swap positions with your partner, which also increased your strategic options. The character in front attacked first, and the character in the back was less likely to be attacked. All the strategy these brought is gone and replaced with nothing. There is Kirsty, but she doesn't have her own attacks. She can't even tattle enemies, which is a problem. Tattling enemies not only made their health visible, but it also gave you info on the enemy. How much attack they have, how much defense they have, and possible tips on how to beat them. You get none of that in this game, so to find that out, you have to figure it out yourself, with no help at all. Now you do see the enemy's health by default, but when you have multiple enemies in one battle, their health is combined into one number, so you can't tell how much health an enemy has individually. Which also decreases strategy because you don't know how much more you need to hit that enemy, so you might waste a stronger attack, or use an attack too weak to finish it off. Also worth noting is that generally damage and health numbers are a bit higher than the previous games. Not obnoxiously high like a lot of RPGs, but still. Now Kirsty does have one function in battle, the Battle Spinner. You can spend some money to activate a roulette. If you manage to match 2 icons, you are able to attack twice in one turn. If you match 3, then not only do you get a unique effect depending on what icon you matched, but you get 3 attacks for that turn, and even the next turn you get 2. You can spend even more money to guarantee that you will match 2 of them, and you can spend even more money to slow down the spinner. However, slowing it down is useless because it slows down the 2 linked icons, not the single one, so it doesn't help in getting all 3 to match and is a waste of money. The battle spinner just kind of sucks. Yes, having more attacks is nice, but you have to spend money on it, and most of the time that isn't worth it outside of bosses. And it's only a chance to get more attacks, unless you pay extra. They move way too fast to reasonably be able to time. Maybe you can time it after some practice, but that shouldn't be the case for something you have to pay for. So anytime you use it, you'll just pay up twice so it isn't wasted. Some fights start with a battle spin, which is at least a little helpful, but again you need to pay to be able to guarantee you will get use out of it. Let me tell you, the battle spinner is an awful replacement for all the stuff they cut. There is no strategy involved other than, do I want more attacks right now? And that's not all the problems with the battle spinner. So you know how in previous games, when there were multiple enemies in battle, how you could select which enemy to attack if that attack wasn't a ground-locked attack? It offered a lot of strategy in prioritizing which enemies to attack first. Well, you can't choose who to attack at all. You can only attack the first enemy in line. The only way to attack enemies farther back is with the battle spinner. When you have multiple attacks, the first attack will target the first enemy in line, then the second attack will target the second enemy in line, etc. This also greatly takes away strategy. There is no enemy prioritization at all. The only way to do it is to waste money on the spinner, and even then in a far more limited capacity. If there's a particularly nasty enemy in the battle, but he's in the back of the line, well, you'll just have to deal with it until you take everyone else out first, or fork over some money. And this isn't every way they stripped back the strategy in this game. Status effects are hardly a thing anymore. There are a few like Crumpled and Sleep, but there's no burned status. The enemies can't really buff themselves. I will say Sleep is handled rather interestingly. While you or the enemy is asleep, you recover a bit of health each turn, which is actually pretty cool. But most statuses from previous games are gone, which strips down the strategy even more. There are no badges either. Badges offered a wide variety of benefits to you in the first 2 games, from passive buffs to all new attacks. This is where a significant portion of the strategic elements came from in those games. And once again, it was removed and replaced with nothing. There is no equivalent to the badges in this game at all. There's also no experience points. There's no form of permanent growth from fighting enemies. This is something that is constantly brought up against this game, and for good reason. Removing experience does a substantial amount of damage to this game. First off, it takes away customization. In the previous games, when you got enough star points, you leveled up, and when you level up, you get a choice to increase health, flower points, or badge points. This, combined with badges, allowed for quite a variety in playstyles and loadouts. There are many combinations of badges you could equip. Focusing on health, flower points, or badge points opened up many different ways to play those games. This encouraged experimentation and offered a substantial amount of replay value, which, if you couldn't guess, is a good thing. Sticker Star doesn't have this customization at all. There's hardly any variety of playstyles, and replay value is really low. The only stat you can increase is HP, but not by fighting enemies. You find these hearts in the world that increase your health by 5. At max, you get 100 HP. But that's not all the damage removing experience points did. It also takes away any incentive to fight enemies. Why fight them when you get nothing out of them? The only things you get for defeating enemies is sometimes they drop stickers, but that doesn't make up for the stickers you used fighting them in the first place. But more importantly, you get money. Not only do you get money for defeating enemies, but when you finish a level, you have this brief part where you collect money that falls down. The amount of money you get is dependent on how many enemies you've defeated in the level. If you don't defeat any enemies, you barely get any money, but if you fight all the enemies, you get showered in coins. This is the best way to make money in the game, and you'll need to do it a few times if you're planning on buying things. However, if you're not concerned with getting 100%, then you'll have basically no use for money, which makes this a very poor reward. This, combined with the fact that enemies disappear when you run from them, really encourages you to not fight them. It's not worth fighting them at all. It's optimal to run away. Do I even need to elaborate on why this whole system is backwards? In a game with a focus on combat, Encouraging you to not fight the enemies is bad. It goes counter to the design. And if you're at the point where you're just running from enemies instead of fighting them, because fighting them isn't fun or even worth it, you failed at making a battle system. Just so we're clear, you get rewarded at the end of the levels for fighting enemies, meaning the game wants you to fight enemies, which reinforces the contradicting design of the battle system. You may have noticed by now their method of moving the series forward was by means of subtraction. They removed many features and mechanics and replaced them with practically nothing. So what are we left with? Stickers! Stickers are important to nearly all aspects of this game, and that includes the combat. In fact, the combat is where the stickers are the most heavily used. Besides the run and battle spitter commands, the only thing you can do is use a sticker. There's no defend command, there's no do nothing command, there's no appeal, not that it would do anything given there's no audience and therefore no special moves. To do anything in battle, you must use stickers. Stickers are all your attacks, all your defensive options, as few of those as there are. Without stickers, you can't attack. To jump on an enemy, you must use a jump sticker. To hit an enemy with a hammer, you must use a hammer sticker. Once you use a sticker, it's gone. Stickers are consumables. They're basically items from the previous games. They made a battle system out of items, and it is so very bad. There are so many problems with making all your attack options, scratch that, all options in general, consumables. But before that, let's just talk about the kinds of stickers you'll get. There are a multitude of different kinds of stickers, but a good chunk of them can fit under either jump or hammer. There are different types of jump stickers. There's normal jumps, iron jumps, which allow you to jump on spiked enemies, hop slippers, which allow you to jump on an enemy up to 10 times, line jumps, which let you jump on all enemies, clone jumps, which creates clones of Marios to jump on enemies, and infinite jumps, which allow you to jump on an enemy up to 100 times. Same could be said for hammers. There are many types. There are also other types like fire and ice flowers, shells, POW blocks, as well as special effect, defensive, and healing stickers. And for each type, there are multiple tiers of them. For example, there isn't one jump sticker. There's the worn out jump, the normal jump, the shiny jump, the flashy jump, the big shiny jump, and the mega flash jump. That is the order of tiers for stickers, though not every sticker has all these tiers. Only the hammer and jump stickers can have big shiny or mega flash variants, besides the big shiny 1-up. And only the normal hammer and normal jump have worn out variants. Most other stickers have normal, shiny, and flashy variants and nothing else. Also, the clone jumps and infinite jumps, the lowest tier, is flashy. There's also special stickers gotten from enemies that only have one variant. As you can tell, there aren't many rules for what stickers have what tiers, and plenty of exceptions, which can be a bit confusing before you figure out what all kinds of stickers there are. There's another type of sticker, thing stickers, and I hate that name. It makes it annoying to talk about them. I'll go over how they're obtained later, but in battle, things generally are really powerful attacks. There are a couple that heal or buff you, but the vast majority of them are just strong attacks. Most enemies will just die instantly when hit with the thing. Obviously, the trade-off is how uncommon they are. Things don't technically have tiers, but most of them are grouped by types. Like there are 3 different vacuums at different strengths, or fans, or instruments, etc. Usually the groups are in 3s, but some there are just 1 of. And there are 4 scissors. So the things also have tiers essentially, but since even the weaker ones are really powerful, having so many different thing stickers is redundant. Some things have different effects, but most of them are just damage dealers. So there's not a lot of functional differences between them, but I digress. The main point is the majority of stickers have stronger variants, which is important to note. The fact that your only method of attacking comes from consumables is such a problem. It just doesn't work. Now you might be tempted to say that a combat system based around consumables isn't inherently bad, and you'd be right. Essentially, that's what shooters are. You have limited ammo. Once you're out of ammo, that's it. You can't fire that gun until you find more. Why is it good in those games? An important aspect of most shooters is resource management, to find ammo for your weapons, and make sure to use it efficiently so you can take out the enemies without wasting those resources. Resource management adds depth to shooter combat. You can't just pick the strongest gun and annihilate everything in sight. That ammo will be limited, so you must use it strategically. When is the best time to whip out the rocket launcher? Only have one shot, so better make it count. How is it any different in Sticker Star? Well, for one, the challenge of shooters is beyond just resource management alone. The challenge also comes from quick reflexes, precision, and on-the-fly decision-making, and these elements are complemented by resource management. Sticker Star doesn't really have anything besides resource management since it gutted all the strategic elements from past games. Without all the other elements, all you have are the stickers themselves, and because of the way they handled it, it promotes avoiding combat, which is not a good thing to promote. Now, this isn't because you'll run out of stickers. You are not going to run out of stickers in this game, because it conditions you to avoid using stickers in battle altogether. All forms of attacking being consumables severely discourages experimentation. You'll only really be willing to use common stickers since when you get a rarer sticker, you can't experiment with it without it being used up. And because you'll be unwilling to experiment, it leads to you hoarding stronger stickers and never using them. You don't want to waste a good sticker on a weak enemy, and you'll obviously be throwing out weaker stickers anytime you find stronger ones. So you get an inventory full of strong stickers, and thus you avoid battles to avoid wasting those strong stickers. All stickers are competing for space in the inventory. Bigger and more powerful stickers take up more space, while also not being used up very often because you want to save it. In shooters like Doom 2016, the guns have different ammo pools. Ammo for one gun is not competing for space with ammo from another. You don't need to drop shotgun ammo to pick up BFG ammo. Also worth noting that most shooters have some sort of melee attack, so you still have a method to attack if you run out of ammo. Or you can use it to save ammo. If the enemy has 1 HP, you don't need to waste a rocket to kill it. Just smack it. And there are some that have a weak weapon that has unlimited ammo, so you still have that to fall back on. When you run out of ammo in a shooter, the fight isn't over. When you run out of stickers, there's nothing you can do but run, or use the battle spinner for what help that'll give you. You can't even choose to do nothing, which is such a problem as it forces you to waste a sticker even if it would be more advantageous to do nothing. Like, say, if you're put in a situation where you literally can't hit the enemy at all. If you can't hit an enemy, well, you still need to use a sticker, which means you've thrown it away to gain nothing. Again, they took away strategy. Also, if you use a battle spin to gain more attacks, but you kill the enemies before using all of the selected stickers, you still lose the stickers you didn't use. Just another way the game makes you waste stickers. Not having a non-consumable attack option is such a problem, but it doesn't need to be. Breath of the Wild doesn't have a default attack like that. Well, aside from bombs, but they aren't really the most useful later in the game. And just like Sticker Star, stronger weapons have to compete for space with weaker weapons. In that game, you can pick up numerous weapons that have limited durability. After a short amount of time using the weapon, it'll break. So the question remains, how is it different from Sticker Star? First off, durability. Because these weapons work on a durability system, it allows for much more experimentation. You're not going to lose a weapon by hitting an enemy once. You can test it out. And stronger weapons will kill weaker enemies faster, which overall decreases how much durability you use. And secondly, enemies give you far more reliable drops. They drop materials, which are useful for a few things, mainly upgrading armor. You gain permanent growth from defeating enemies, which doesn't happen in Sticker Star because of the lack of experience points. Enemies are also your main source of gaining weapons in the first place. There are other methods to get weapons, but most of the time you'll get them from enemies, which is the opposite of how Sticker Star works. You do get stickers for defeating enemies, but it's almost never worth the trade-off. Unless it's against weak enemies, you'll be walking away with less stickers, and chances of getting better stickers than what you have or used is low. In Breath of the Wild, you can see what weapons the enemies have so you know what you'll get. Unlike Sticker Star, where it's up to luck if you can get a sticker at all. But as I said, you are not going to be running out of stickers. But not just because you won't be using them much, also because the game floods you with them. The majority of the stickers you get are just lying around. They're all over the place. Their method of compensating for all your attacks being consumables was to make sure there are plenty of stickers lying around. But this doesn't fix anything. In fact, it just makes battles even more pointless. It's much more effective to ignore enemies since all you'll do is lose stickers for little to no compensation and fill out your inventory with the much better stickers found in the environment. It doesn't take long before you have a full inventory of fairly powerful stickers. You don't need to do anything special to get really good stickers. You don't need to buy them, the game just hands them to you. You know, the previous games didn't have the best consumable system. A lot of the attacking ones were pretty useless later in the game. Really, the best items to carry around were healing items. It wasn't a great item system, but it did its job well enough, and was just one part of the battle system. Sticker Star's combat revolves around consumables, and it still handled it worse in every aspect. Hell, you can't even use healing items outside of battle. Even the simplest things, this game does wrong. The only healing items you're getting are mushrooms as well. None of the more creative items from the previous games are here. There isn't even a cooking system. Even Super Paper Mario had that. How is it that this game managed to make everything, absolutely everything, worse? Now, one thing this game brought back is action commands. Now, action commands were a good thing to add in a bit of skill and interactivity to turn-based combat. However, there are a couple issues. Notice that items didn't have action commands in the first two games. They didn't because they were consumables, and something you can only use once before it's gone forever shouldn't have a chance to fail. If you fail an action command in Sticker Star, you wasted a sticker. It's gone. This discourages the use of stickers that have more difficult action commands. You can't even practice the action commands without losing the sticker. Now you might think giving more pressure to get action commands right would be a good thing, and on paper, yes, but not the way Sticker Star handled it. The first two games already incentivized you to get action commands right, especially Thousand Year Door with the audience mechanics. And those games had pressure to get them right by means of limiting attacks. It was called FP. With limited FP, you had to make sure you didn't waste any by getting action commands wrong, and it added resource management in a much better way. Losing FP is not like losing stickers. It can be recovered in battle. Knowing when to use it, how much to use, and when to recover it was a big part of the strategy. There's also Star Power, which is its own resource, which also has that same strategy, and can be used to recover FP. The only way to recover stickers is if you get lucky enough for the game to just give you one in battle. Another issue with action commands are the commands themselves. They've been severely simplified. The variety of different action commands is gone. All action commands are about timing the A button. All these action commands are boring. There's nothing as interesting as any of the action commands in the first two games. Fire flowers are just timing a button press. Shells are just timing a button press. POW blocks are just timing a button press. Even the mushroom has an action command, which I didn't even know about until the end of the game, but it again is just timing a button press. The hammer isn't pulling back on the stick, it's hitting the button at the right time, which, let me mention, is difficult to pinpoint the timing for the best results. There's hardly any indication for when to hit the button for dealing the most damage, and it's easy to wait too long and waste the sticker. The thing stickers are probably the worst with action commands, because for the vast majority of them, the action command is just mashing. That's it. There are so many different things, and almost all of them have the exact same command. Some of them are different, but then it's just the usual timing a button press. Except the cake, which requires you to blow into the 3DS mic at the right time, which the game gives no indication that's what you need to do. In fact, they just don't tell you what the action command for any of them is. So because most of them are mashing, you'll just assume all of them are and probably mess up, which of course results in losing the thing. And because of what you need to do to get things, that's even more devastating. But again, that's for later. Most things do damage without the action command, but the cake, which is a healing item, doesn't do anything if you mess up the command. So you just threw out a healing item you were likely desperate to use through no fault of your own because the game has very poor communication. Like the previous games, you can guard against enemy attacks on their turn, but it works differently. If you push the button early, Mario will do the guard animation, but then we'll have a cool-off where he can't guard again. During that cool-off, you're probably going to get hit. That is fine. It does encourage you to get the timing right in an effective way. But the issue with guarding is that instead of subtracting a point of damage from what you take, it reduces the damage you take by what seems to be half, which means you can never not take damage. Also, super guarding was removed. That was one of my favorite additions to Thousand Year Door, so that's another pretty disappointing thing. Again, with the running theme of subtraction. But you know what? I'm tired and need a break. So who is up for a rousing game of Joustus? Don't know how to play? Well, let me explain. The goal is to claim more gems than your opponent. It's not about getting all of them, just the majority. To claim a gem, one of your cards needs to be on top of it, but you simply can't place it on a gem. You need to push the card onto the gem with another card. That's what these arrows are for. But you can't just push around any card in any direction. You can't push against another arrow. And if there is no more room in that direction for a card to go, well, you can't push against it. As I said, the goal is to claim the majority of gems on the board. The game only ends when all the center squares have a card placed on them. You can't place cards on the outside. Those are for pushing other cards out to get them out of the way and create a defense so your cards can't be pushed. That is a simple explanation of the game. It gets more complicated later on, but you get the idea. It's all about building a deck that covers many options and strategically setting up your cards so the game ends with you owning the majority of the gems. Okay, now you might be wondering why I just explained the rules for the card game found in Shovel Knight King of Cards. Well, Sticker Star's battle system is basically a card-based battle system, just with stickers instead of cards. The whole point of card games is strategically building a deck to cover a wide assortment of options, as well as making sure the cards complement each other. You don't just fill it with the best cards, you need to think about what each card does and how it could be used. But also, when you use a card, you don't lose that card forever. It goes back in your deck. Sticker Star's combat is if a card game didn't make you think strategically about what cards you have, and instead just pick all the ones with the highest stats. Am I saying Sticker Star's combat would be better if it just straight up was a card game? Yes. It wouldn't have the issues of wasting stickers when used if it simply went back into your deck, and there would be more strategy to it. Now, let's talk about enemies. It should go without saying that all the unique enemies from the previous games are not here. No clefts, no bristles, no puffs, or any of those. Even some enemies not unique to Paper Mario are gone. There aren't any Magic Koopas in this game, well except Kamek. This is one reason I don't like Kamek, because he has the basic Magic Koopa design. His presence means there can't be other Magic Koopas. When Kammy was here, we had a variety of Magic Koopa enemies, but with Kamek, none whatsoever. And it doesn't have to be this way. They could just have the other colors be enemies alongside Kamek. Or, use Kammy. We don't even have the unique variants of the typical enemies, like there aren't any spike-top Goombas, instead they fold to become pointed. Now don't get used to that sort of thing, they really don't do creative stuff with the enemies being paper very often at all, despite shoving paper down your throat. There's the 2- and 5-fold Goombas, and that's about it. Now most of the enemies are ones that were in previous games, and they work similarly to them most of the time, though some of the more unique properties have been removed or replaced. Koopas still go in their shell, but instead of flipping them over, you can jump on them again to kick the shell, which instantly defeats the Koopa and hurts any other enemy behind it. There are certain changes here that seem to only exist to mess with Paper Mario fans. Buzzy Beetles only have like one defense. Spinies don't have any. But the most baffling are the Dry Bones. In previous games, Dry Bones were weak to fire, but here they are immune to fire. I know this is likely because that's how Dry Bones worked in New Super Mario Bros., but this is supposed to be a Paper Mario game. So why change that? Speaking of Dry Bones, they are some of the most annoying enemies because they don't die. If you beat one, it doesn't go away. It crumples on the floor and gets back a few seconds later, which just means you've wasted stickers trying to kill it. Even running from these guys doesn't make them disappear. You can only kill them by dropping a coffin lid on them, which would be a fine idea in a game that didn't have a battle system entirely based around consumables. Also, not every Dry Bones is even near a coffin, so you can't kill all of them. The enemy selection is just kind of boring in this game. There are some new enemies for Paper Mario, but it's again the usual New Super Mario Bros. Enemies, although the Mariachi Shy Guys are neat. Why are these the only guys who can have a unique design? Enemies with projectiles are rather annoying since, as I mentioned before, projectiles don't start a battle, so you just take damage, and some of these enemies are snipers like the spear guys. It makes going through these areas much more annoying, especially since you'll probably be avoiding enemies. I've said before that a battle system is only as good as the enemies you fight. But the problems with Sticker Star's battle system are so vast and deeply rooted that even if the enemies were really good, it wouldn't help at all. The battle system would still be completely awful. Everything, and I do mean everything, about this battle system is terrible. There isn't a single thing I can say is good about it, at least nothing that would be worth mentioning. This is, and I can say this confidently and without hesitation, the worst battle system in any game I've played. Not just Paper Mario, and not just turn-based combat. I can think of bland and boring combat systems. I can think of rather flawed combat systems. I can think of outright bad combat systems. And Sticker Star is worse than anything I can think of. It is the bottom of the barrel. There is nothing worse for me. It isn't because it's different from the previous games, it just sucks that much. And it impacts the rest of the game because of how much of a focus it has. And believe me, I still haven't gone over the worst part of the battle system, but I'll get to that in due time. It isn't a secret that Sticker Star's battle system is bad. Plenty of people have said it, but I don't think most people really understand just how bad it is. But people would also say that even if the battle system was bad, the rest of the game was fine. But no, it's not fine. Let's get into it. The prologue is rather short and uneventful, though I will say it is better paced than the first game's prologue, but that's about it. All you're doing is finding all the toads in town so they can restore the plaza. This part can be mildly tedious, but otherwise it attempts to prepare you for searching around the world. You also get a battle tutorial afterwards when you try to leave town. So this is Decalburg, or as I like to call it,
Decalburg.
As previously stated, this is the equivalent to the main towns from the previous games, but it is not nearly as fleshed out as them. There's very little to this place and very little reason to come back. The plaza has two things, a shop and the museum. I'll save the museum for later. There are various shops in the game, but they are all for buying stickers. Unless you're looking for very specific stickers, there's little reason to waste money on them, as you'll find plenty of stickers out in the world. Hell, there are a bunch of stickers around town you can get for free. Why would I buy that shoe when there was one stuck to the side of this house?
There is.
Not anymore, because I took it. It is a useful way of getting mushrooms, though. This shop's stock increases as you progress through the game, but I'm uncertain of exactly when and what it gets every time. I assume it's after completing a chapter, but I'm not sure when the extra page of stickers is added. I didn't notice until the end of the game, which was rather irritating, though admittedly it was my fault for not noticing the button prompt. You can sell stickers at shops as well, though the money you get is pitiful. You can't store stickers like you could store items in previous games, and of all the games, this one needed that feature the most. With all the giant stickers you'll be getting that you want to save for a boss, it would be awfully convenient to be able to store them so you can actually have inventory space. And especially when you're trying to gather a bunch of specific stickers to prepare for a boss, it would be very helpful if you could just store stickers instead of having to delete or sell them to make room. Look, change for the sake of change isn't inherently good. Sometimes something is good the way it is and doesn't need to be changed. What possible benefit could there have been to remove item storage? It did nothing but detract from the game. Also, there's no shop point system like the previous games. Okay, I'm not crying over that exclusion, but it's yet another thing they cut and replaced with nothing. Each shop has a selection of stickers, but nothing notable about the other ones to talk about, except for one, but I'll save that for when it's relevant. On the east side of Decalburg is this residential area. There isn't much of a point to it aside from a couple Easter eggs. Once per chapter, you'll run into this toad who is being bullied by some enemies. You can help it out by fighting or bribing them, though I haven't tried ignoring them, so I'm not sure what happens if you do. Every time you do this, you can go to this house and read these postcards he sent to this other toad talking up his adventure. Clearly bending the truth, making it seem he handled everything himself. Kinda reminds me of the Super Luigi books from Thousand Year Door and how they exaggerated Luigi's adventure. This is one of those rare moments in the game that has genuine charm to it. And there's no catch either, it's just a good Easter egg. Now the other Easter egg, in a few places, again once per chapter, you can find Luigi just hanging out in the background. If you interact with him, he runs away. Luigi! That is a really disappointing use of Luigi, but at least every time you find him, if you go into this house, you can read these newspaper clippings talking about Luigi. They refer to him as the mysterious green guy, and in an exaggerated fashion question if he exists, and make out what he was doing as strange. Though I don't like the implication that Luigi is weak here. Dude absolutely destroyed the Mario equivalent to Lucifer, and you're calling him weak? Again, another charming part of the game, though it still doesn't stack up to Luigi's previous roles. Luigi appears in the credits if you find him in all locations, which is a parade like the first game, which this game has no right to mimic. Later in the game you can find this toad who attempts to scam you into buying a poison mushroom, which is rather amusing. That's something the Thousand Year Door would do. That motherfucker. Oh, when I get my hands on him, I'll know him when I see him. That motherfucker can't escape me.
When you see him?
There he is!
What are you doing?
Give me back my money!
They got fucking cash! Why are you doing this?
You look exactly like the guy who just scared me.
We all look the same. What are you talking about?
North of here is the festival grounds. As mentioned before, as you progress through the game, this place gets closer and closer to being restored. It's nice to see some visible progress, but the main purpose of this area are these flags. Think of them like achievements. The ones on the left are general stuff you'll just fill in as you play the game, assuming you're going for 100% with collectibles. The flags on the right, however, are just awful. Let's go over them one by one. Hit the Battle Spinner jackpot 50 times. This means getting all 3. By the end, I got 6. Perform 1,000 excellent attacks. Yes, 1,000. That is ridiculous. I only got 253 by the end. Get a perfect bonus in 500 battles. This is beating the enemies on turn 1 before they can attack. And again, that's ridiculous. I got 57. And the last one is spend, not obtain, spend 10,000 coins. And it has to be a sticker shop, nothing else. I spent 3,388. How the hell do they expect you to do this, or any of these? By grinding. That's how. You're extremely unlikely to naturally get any of these without grinding. And no, I wasn't about to subject myself to this for this review. You don't get anything out of it besides them showing up in the credits anyways. You have to grind for these. Grinding in a Paper Mario game. Grinding in the one Paper Mario game up to this point that didn't have a level up system. On the west side of town is the Sling-A-Thing stand. To use this, you need things. Things are, well, just a random assortment of objects that aren't made of paper. They clearly aren't native to this world, so one has to question how they got here. You'll come across things throughout the game, mostly hidden in the level, though some are out in the open. Things do nothing for you. You get them, and they go in a separate inventory. Now, for the longest time, I thought you could only hold 5 things at a time, and that was it, because the screen gives no indication that you can hold any more. And inventory has been a pain in the ass for stickers, so why assume this would be better? But if you get a 6th thing, another page appears. And I haven't been able to reach the page limit for things, so it's safe to say you're likely able to carry everything in the game. You can only carry one of one specific thing at a time, so you can't have 2 scissors. Now, as I said, things... God, I'm so tired of saying things. Things are unusable by themselves. To use them, you need to go to the Sling-A-Thing stand where you convert things into thing stickers. This is annoying. Okay, the only positive thing to say about this is that you can hold on to things without taking up inventory space. But besides that, what is the point of having to turn them into stickers? Every time you want to turn a thing into a sticker, you have to backtrack to Decalburg to do so. Every time. Picking up a thing in a level will do nothing for you. If you want to use it, you have to backtrack. You also can only sling one thing at a time, so if you have a lot of things to sling, it takes a while. Why can't they just turn into stickers the moment you find them? That would have been much more convenient. Now, there only exists one of each thing in the game. If you have that thing, even as a sticker, you can't get another one until you get rid of the one you have. But once you do, in order to get that thing again, you have to backtrack to where you found it. That is rather annoying and time-consuming when preparing for a boss. But there is an alternative. Next to the Sling-A-Thing stand is the shady-looking back alley market that sells things. It is convenient to not have to backtrack, but it doesn't do much to alleviate the backtracking because they are expensive. Like, really expensive. And by the way, buying things here doesn't count for the 10,000 coins achievement, which is awful since this would be the best place to get that. This is the most worthwhile thing to spend money on, but you can't do it too frequently or you run out of money fast. Most of the time it's better to bite the bullet and just backtrack for the thing. Even when you buy a thing here, you still need to sling it. Sure, it is right there, but it's still an unnecessary time waster. It would have just been better if things turned into stickers when you got them, and you could just buy thing stickers here. But no, it had to be as tedious as possible, and this is only the beginning of the backtracking. The last thing there is to Decalburg is the Sticker Museum. After you save this toad from the clutches of the evil fountain, he'll let you into his home, which contains the museum. But I'll save the museum for when it's more relevant. And that is it for Decalburg. There's not much here compared to previous main towns, only the bare minimum. And hardly a reason to come back aside from slinging things or the very few optional stuff. It's easily the worst main town in the series. I already mentioned all the stuff other towns had that this one doesn't, but in terms of optional content, the museum and the super flags are it. There aren't really any side quests unless you want to count the Wandering Toad, but that's really it. There's no Trouble Center equivalent, there's no Pit of 100 Trials, which, believe me, is a relief given this game's battle system, but it's more cut content. Can't really say if this game has the worst optional content when Super had the flopside pit and collecting all the catch cards are certainly worse than finding all the stickers in the game. But it's just stripped back when they could have used the opportunity to improve. They chose to do nothing instead of moving forward. Now this game is structured differently from the previous games. Instead of being separated into different chapters that you gain access to from the main town, you have a world map much like a typical 2D Mario game. The game is separated into worlds, and each world is made up of segmented levels. This contributes even more to the world not feeling real. Now Super also had this issue, but even in that game it put in the effort to make the different levels feel more connected. Here they're about as connected as the levels in New Super Mario Bros. Although at least the map shows you if there's another exit still in the level. That's one thing it has over the new series. The first two Paper Mario games felt like actual connected worlds. They weren't perfect in that regard. The fact that practically everything was right next to Toad Town in 64 made the world feel a little small, and Thousand Year Door did rely on pipes to bring you to different areas a bit too much, but they still tried. Having to walk from town to the various places, or to take a blimp or train made the world feel real. This game doesn't even attempt this, really, aside from you getting a boat which allows you access to Worlds 4 and 5, but besides that, each world is very much separate from each other and Decalburg, and each level in each world may as well exist in a vacuum from the rest of the world. But to actually talk about the structure itself, the goal of each level is to get a piece of the sticker comet. They are basically the same as the star blocks or whatever they were from Super. Now some levels actually have multiple comet pieces, and this isn't inherently a problem, but getting one boots you out of the level like Mario 64, meaning you'll have to replay bits of the level again to get the other one, which just piles on more backtracking. Now you might think why this would be a problem here, but not in a game like Mario World where you have secret exits that require you to essentially replay levels to find all exits. Mario World being a 2D platformer is a faster paced game, and the levels themselves are fairly short, so going through them a second time doesn't take very long. Mario World also doesn't have turn-based combat, meaning you get by enemies really quickly. In Sticker Star it's tedious because of the enemies. And well, the level design isn't fun to blitz through a second time. There is some exploration in finding the second comet piece, but usually it's just on a different path that doesn't take much effort to find, so it really doesn't add much. Then there are the times the path leading to the next comet piece is near where the first one was. And at that point, I have to ask why even bother? The main reason for having more comet pieces in a level is to have branching paths. Each comet piece leads to a different level. You don't need to play every level to get to the end, and this grants this game some non-linearity, believe it or not. In fact, this is the only Paper Mario game that is non-linear. For the topic of non-linearity, I am going to pass the mic over to Horayn, one of my friends who helped with the creation of this video.
When looking at the gameplay of Sticker Star, whether it's the battle mechanics, exploration, or progression, it is clear that the game is designed to promote experimentation, or at least it tries to. A hallmark of a game designed for experimentation is a plethora of options, something Sticker Star has across the board. Stickers, for example, come in a massive variety of types and effects, not to mention the thing stickers adding even more to the variety. Taking this philosophy further, level order is also largely up to the player and their willingness to experiment. The only requirements to enter World 2 are 6 stickers that can be acquired rather early, and the trumpet from World 1 is used to enter World 3. While yes, the trumpet is late in World 1, you can still finish World 3 before World 1. And to enter Worlds 4 and 5, you need the fishhook from World 3, as it's needed to beat the Cheep Cheep. When all considered together, you can clear World 5 first if you wish to, or in basically any other order for that matter. In fact, there's nothing stopping you from finishing any of the 5 major worlds in any order you please. So far this sounds great. I mean, if the game is designed around experimentation, this wide variety of combat and explorative options should play directly into that philosophy, right? So, what is the problem? Put shortly, execution. Take stickers, for instance. They come in a wide variety of types, yes, but how they handle experimentation is backwards. For gameplay oriented around experimentation to work, experimentation must be a rewarding process in and of itself, but in this case, it is not. Why use a hop slip over a normal jump? It does more damage than the 11 damage of a normal jump at 20, but a hair less than the shiny jump, which does 21. The same could be said for the slap hammer and eek hammer, which do more than the hammer except without the splash damage. The problem with this is that there is so much overlap in the strategy of these stickers that there is little reason to choose one over the other in terms of functionality. Now, you might think that the increased damage is the reason to use them, but you would be somewhat mistaken. Take the Spear Guy, a standard enemy from World 5 as an example. He has 12 HP, so anything that does more than a normal jump is practically identical when fighting him. Shiny, flashy, big shiny, mega flash, all the same. Why use a hop slipper or a shiny jump? There is no reason. Keep in mind that this is the last normal world in the game, and that you get shiny tier stickers as early as World 1. Now you may argue that the higher tier stickers are better on bosses, but that would be largely mistaken. Due to how boss defense works, multi-hits are overall more effective than single hit stickers, making it generally more important to stockpile those over shinier ones. Not that it matters so much anyway, for reasons I am sure Red will address later. But regarding sticker variety again, this lack of real diversity applies to most stickers in the game. What is the biggest difference between the shell and the POW block? One crumples and one does slightly more damage, but if you are looking for damage, the Fire Flower and Ice Flower are nearly the same, not to mention the Burn Hammers and Chill Hammers. Plus, the Sleep on Ba Hammers is comparable to the Crumple on POW blocks, meaning that all of those, and more as I've only discussed some stickers of this type, really boil down to just two variants, damage or stun nukes. But again, due to low standard enemy health, stun is rather pointless. Sure, it might be good for some bosses, but bosses rarely, if ever, have multiple targets, so why use nukes? All of this, and I haven't even addressed how the only way you would discover these differences is through using the stickers, which disappear after a single use. As Red discussed earlier, there are ways they could have made this work better and not discourage experimentation, but I won't elaborate further to avoid redundancy. The point is that for these reasons you are discouraged to experiment with stickers, and if you do, you will get little reward for doing so. I've gone on long enough on stickers. Let's explore that non-linearity thing further. Non-linearity is a bit more broad in how it can be implemented and what kind of design it is supposed to promote. Some games are like, say, Breath of the Wild, where you can go wherever and do whatever, whenever. Others are more like A Link to the Past, where what you can and cannot do is dictated by what you have. Do you want to do that dungeon next? If so, you need this item first. Sticker Star is structured more like the latter, using things as keys to access levels and progression. For this reason, I am going to compare the two. In A Link to the Past, there are about a dozen dungeons tied to the progression of the game, and after you beat the first Dark World dungeon, the game opens up for the other 6, allowing you to beat them in a wide variety of orders. Which dungeons you do is dictated by what items you have. For example, Turtle Rock requires the Cane of Samaria, which you get in Misery Mire. Misery Mire requires the Titan's Mint, which is found in Thieves' Town. Turtle Rock also requires the Fire Rod from Skull Woods. There are more requirements for more dungeons, but this should be enough to convey the point. In A Link to the Past, you can experiment with what items you get, where, and when to mix up the order. This decision is strategic, as it determines what tools you have access to when, and promotes learning the game to better learn potential orders, as the more you know about it, the more ways you can attempt to experiment with new orders. This offers replayability and reward for experimenting with its nonlinear structure. In Sticker Star, by contrast, things act as gates to accessing content, like the items in A Link to the Past, but not in any interesting or meaningful way. In A Link to the Past, items act as tools that give you a practical utility outside the progression barriers. Things act as attacks, but are too expensive and rarely useful enough to make this a meaningful function. In A Link to the Past, learning what items are where allows you to further experiment with order. The same is true for Sticker Star, however, doing so reveals other issues. Take the shop system as an example. In Sticker Star, the shop inventory updates with each world finished, giving you access to better and better stickers. However, even if you access World 5 early, you are still stuck with the early game shop restrictions. You may consider this to be the risk you take by accessing late game content early, and fair enough, but you get no reward for this risk. In fact, you will get punished for it, as the shop still does not update after beating a later world. The reason for this is because the shop changes inventory based on beating specific worlds, and by doing so out of order, you prolong your ability to access better stickers in stores artificially. Similar could be said with your sticker inventory limit being incredibly low until you finish your first world, but that at least does update regardless of world order. But let's explore the concept of challenge derived from doing later areas early. This too is an element of A Link to the Past, as tackling later dungeons earlier runs more risk without helpful items, health, or armor. The same is true of Sticker Star's health and page limits, but becomes more questionable when considering further. For example, the aforementioned shop limit is bizarre when considering the abundance of powerful stickers in late-game areas. But this too hardly matters anyway when, as I mentioned before, late-game enemies are still able to be taken out in 1 or 2 turns with early-game stickers. This entire design structure comes across as confused. Why limit what I can buy in shops when the levels give me a ton of these for free? But then again, why does it matter that shops carry only early-game stickers when played this way if the enemies will still die incredibly quickly from them anyway? This extends past the issue of sticker balancing and leaks into other areas like health. You would think that the game having less health in late game due to skipping significant chunks of the game would be an issue, or at least more challenging. But most of the time, it's not really a factor. As I said before, most enemies can be taken out in 1 or 2 turns, giving them little opportunity to hit you, and even if you accumulate chip damage, heart blocks are still common and free in late game. None of this is even to mention that, as always, running from fights is still a dominant strategy. If you never fight enemies, it hardly matters what stickers you have or how little health you have. The oddities with non-linearity don't even stop here. Take for another example the side quest to find the Toad in each world and save him from bullies. He does not arrive in a world until you see him in the prior one, meaning that playing this game out of order forces you to backtrack just to finish this side quest. After getting the 3rd Wiggler segment, if you attempt to proceed to the next level using the bowling ball without turning him in first, he will block your shot, forcing you to backtrack out of the level to re-sling the ball just to prevent doing one small thing out of order, despite the whole game being non-linear in structure. And sure, I mentioned at the start of this that you can do World 5 first, but to do so you need to get most of the way through the last level of World 1, and then skip the boss, which I would hardly consider an ideal way to implement a nonlinear progression system. There are dozens more oddities and backwards choices I could delve into regarding experimentation in Sticker Star, but the long and short of it is that despite having various systems in place to promote experimentation, Sticker Star ultimately shows the player that not only is experimentation futile, but that the path of least resistance is just the better option. Let's return to Red now, shall we? It is his video after all.
Man, that guy talks a lot. But anyways, some people would give compliments to this game for just being non-linear in general, as if non-linearity is inherently superior to linearity. And this is a flawed viewpoint. Some games are harmed by linearity, which makes them feel restrictive, but that's a flaw in how it's used rather than it being the problem itself. Both linearity and non-linearity are tools to construct a structure to a game, and the game has to be properly built with them in mind. As my friend discussed, Sticker Star was not properly built with non-linearity in mind. The non-linear elements do not serve to enhance the game in any meaningful way. In fact, they do quite the opposite. So no, this game does not have a better structure than the previous games just because it is non-linear. Because while they are linear, they were better built for the linear structure than Sticker Star was for a non-linear structure. And with that, I think it's time to discuss level design. Level design has never been Paper Mario's strongest element. None of the first 3 games have what I'd call phenomenal level design. Sticker Star is no exception. But let's start with some positives. While the first 2 games relied a lot on horizontal hallways for most rooms, Sticker Star does have a bit more variety in room shapes. There are still plenty of horizontal hallways, but it does make the world feel a little less like it's made up of hallways, even if the level design is still rather linear. There's more branching paths here, some of which leading to alternate exits, and the game does have more cleverly hidden secrets. More times you'll have to pay attention to the environment to find hidden goodies. The world is also a bit more interactive. More often can you do something that will have a change in the terrain in a more natural way than what previous games would do with the paper transitions. There is a bit of a stronger sense of exploration here, which in concept is a good thing. However, it is undermined by a few factors. A lot of the secrets can be rather cryptic, like hidden passageways that you can't really see unless you get to a very specific angle. And even then, you might only be able to catch a small corner of the opening. There's no realistic way you'll notice this, and sometimes you just can't see it at all. Now, these kinds of secrets are more rare, but most of the time the exploration is fine. The level design is mostly fine, it's generally not that bad, and has some decent exploration at times. But it has a huge problem that basically invalidates any good aspects to the level design. The enemies. Enemies and where they're placed is part of the level design, and because the enemies are really obnoxious and the battle system is so bad, it just isn't fun at all going through these levels. If you look at a game with really good level design and just fill it with annoying enemies, they will ruin the level. Even if you were to remove the enemies, the level design isn't all that special. It's mostly just moving from place to place. There's not much else you're doing. There aren't any other goals aside from getting to the end of the level. You don't really talk to NPCs to figure out what to do, or to help them out. There are elements of exploration, but they're mostly optional. There is some platforming, but it's very basic, and there are minimal puzzle elements, but they aren't very interesting. For most of the game, the puzzle design is pretty easy to figure out. It's really basic, but quite often can feel cryptic, mostly because it relies on having the correct stickers. The game does a poor job at hinting what to do. Now, in the previous games, you had a partner that gave you hints, and they did give good hints when needed. Kirsty, however, rarely even gives you a hint, oftentimes just making a comment on the area that is not related to how to progress. And when she does give a hint, it's usually just to use Paperization, which doesn't help. Otherwise, the level design is really boring for the majority of the game. Sometimes it changes things up or does something slightly interesting, but most of the time it's just going from point A to point B. In the first two games, you gained abilities from Mario, as well as recruited partners who have their own abilities, and you used those abilities to navigate the world. In Sticker Star, your moveset is very limited. You don't gain abilities throughout the game. The level design is built around your very basic moveset, and it never really does anything interesting. Stickers don't give you new abilities outside of battle, so the level design never really evolves as you progress through the game. The only ability you gain in this game comes really early: Paperization. This has a few uses. It allows you to place stickers in the environment, and that might sound like an interesting mechanic. There are so many creative possibilities you could have with a game where you can collect stickers and then place them around the world. Definitely a lot of potential for puzzle solving, or use them to change level design. I'm sure you can think of many different ways this could be put to good use. And this game does not use this in an interesting way. There are occasions where you can place a sticker to block a vent, but they are very few and far between. There's one level where it's like Forever Forest, where if you go down the wrong path, you are sent to the beginning. But here there are signs next to the paths, and you place stickers on them to mark the correct path. Ignoring that you don't use Paperization to do this, this is actually a cool use for stickers. It's the only time the game does something this interesting, and it doesn't last long. Here's the issue with Paperization. You can only place stickers in these boxes you can only see when entering the Paperization mode. This greatly limits the potential this mechanic had. Outside of those rare interesting uses for these, the game does very little with this mechanic. And also, if you use the wrong sticker, you guessed it, you lose the sticker. Even in one of the few interesting uses, covering these vents so you can cross, if you take too long, the stickers peel off, wasting them. Most of the uses for normal stickers is making a block appear that will either upgrade the sticker you put into it, or swap what kind of sticker it is. You can also get multiple stickers from it. There doesn't seem to be a way to tell if it will upgrade or replace, so it's always a gamble if you'll get what you want out of it. Sometimes it just gives you back the same sticker. What we placing?
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, you know what? If you're gonna be this way, flashy slap hammer.
Fine.
And you still have another one, so there's not much to worry about.
What is it? What?
Okay.
Red's trying this again. He isn't buying this shit.
I want the do-over. No, I'm gonna keep trying. Are you kidding me?
They don't even swap it or anything. It's just the fucking same sticker.
I want something better.
I demand more.
Oh.
After all of that.
Why is that one the one? And sometimes if you put a mushroom in one of these, you won't get back any stickers. Instead, you'll get some health. Great, thanks. Most of the puzzles that involve using a sticker in the environment are with thing stickers, but it's so simplistic. There's nothing to it besides using the correct thing. Once you figure out what thing to use, that's it. Challenge complete. All you can do is leave and get the thing, and once you have it, It's not like you do anything interesting with it, just place it down and it plays a cutscene. This is awful puzzle design, because 1, there is no puzzle, and 2, the correct thing is basically never in the same level. Even if it was, you wouldn't be able to use it because you need to go to Decalburg to turn it into a sticker. For example, in this level there is a sandstorm. The whole point of the level is to get rid of the storm. To do that, you need to use a vacuum thing sticker. And that's it. That's the level. Wow, that was fun. It's not like you have to do an interesting puzzle or complete some kind of challenge to do this. It's just, do you have the correct thing? Now, figuring out that the vacuum is what you need to use isn't that hard, mostly because the place you put it is this electrical outlet, so it obviously is a thing that runs on electricity, and the vacuum is really the only thing that would make sense. However, the vacuum isn't obtained in Chapter 2. It's obtained in the harbor. Now, it's easy to get, but what if you didn't go there? What if you just focused on going in order? Now, the harbor isn't a world, it doesn't have a number, but you might still not go there in favor of doing the first 3 worlds before it. You wouldn't have the vacuum and wouldn't have a way to complete this level. The only other thing that works here is the other vacuum that you get out of a secret door in World 3. If the game is going to insist on having these dumb thing non-puzzles, then they should at the very least be found in the same world. You could say this is just like the Metroidvania genre, which is all about backtracking. You're given a big world to explore, but you can't just go anywhere. There are plenty of paths you can't take because you lack the ability required to gain access. There's nothing you can do except go and find the thing necessary to get in. How is it any different in those games? Because Metroidvanias aren't structured in a level-by-level fashion, and you're not just going back to some place to get one thing, then going back to another place to make it usable, then going to where you want to go. You come across an obstacle requiring an ability you don't have, so you turn back and explore the remaining area, all the while keeping that obstacle in the back of your mind. You explore this big world, seeing new areas, gaining new abilities, which makes exploring easier and more fun, until you find that one item that allows you access to that blocked off area. You remember it and get that aha moment and go back to it. In Sticker Star, when your progress is blocked by needing to use a sticker, it's annoying because it isn't about exploring new areas to find new stuff to eventually get the thing necessary and coming back later. It's about dropping everything to go backtrack to where you first found the thing, then going back to Decalburg to sling it, then immediately going back to the level you were just at. The only times where it would count as exploration is if you never found the thing you need, in which case trying to find it is really annoying because you have no clue as to where it could be. In a Metroidvania, you'd have many paths to take, but this is a level-by-level game. Good luck finding out which level has the right thing. There's no real exploration, no satisfying discovery, and unlike Metroidvanias, it's not a new ability that changes how you play the game. It's just a one-time use key that you have to backtrack even more if you want to use it again. There's no satisfying exploration to it. There's no challenge in it. There's no puzzle. It's just tedious backtracking for the sake of it. I often defend backtracking. When it's used properly, like in Metroidvanias or Collectathons, it's very satisfying, but here it's just bad. And that's one half of Paperization. The other half is interacting with scraps. Scraps are pieces of the environment that have been ripped out, leaving only a weird purple haze in the shape of it behind. You can't interact with the purple stuff. You need to find the scrap and use Paperization to put it back where it belongs. Most of the time you just find the scraps crumpled somewhere in the level, but other times they are attached to another part of the environment and you need to use Paperization to get it. For the latter, oftentimes you need to pay attention to the environment to notice them, but sometimes you can't tell they're scraps just by looking. You have a separate inventory space for scraps, thankfully, but they give you like 9 pages and you'll probably never have more than 2 used up max if you play normally. This is an interesting concept with potential, but they don't do much with it. Most of the time you just need to find the scrap and put it back where it belongs to progress, and that's about it. Occasionally you'll have more interesting stuff like the scrap is in the right place but upside down, but all you'll do is grab it, then it automatically turns to the right direction and you put it back. There was one time a comet piece got turned into a scrap, so you need to get it and put it back here to collect it, which is just confusing. I technically have it in my possession. How does this even work? But anyways, there really isn't much to this mechanic. Scraps are really just fancy keys. That's all they function as. They don't have anything interesting about how they're used. There's no puzzle elements to them. Having to find keys to progress isn't a bad concept. Many games do this, but by presenting it in this fashion, it makes it seem more significant than it really is. And because there's more potential in this mechanic that this game does not reach, it just feels way more underwhelming than it otherwise would if it was just simply finding keys. Alright, there's something that needs to be addressed that I've hinted at before. Backtracking. When people think of backtracking in the context of Paper Mario, they think of Thousand Year Door with Chapter 4 and General White. But the truth is, all of these games have some moments of bad backtracking. And Sticker Star has the most backtracking of them all. People don't talk about the backtracking in this game. Oh, they'll be quick to complain about Thousand Year Door's backtracking, but this is worse. Now granted, most of the really bad backtracking is tied to optional stuff, but even ignoring that, Slinging Things adds a ton of backtracking to Decalburg alone, and because they get used up, you'll probably have to do them multiple times for a single thing if it's needed for a puzzle or for a boss. Not to mention, as I said before, if the level has multiple comet pieces in it, you'll have to go through a chunk of the level again before you get to the next path leading to the other comet piece. How about for those Mega Flash stickers you can't buy in shops? If you want more of them, you'll have to backtrack. The whole sticker system, and especially the thing system, make backtracking a much more prominent issue than the previous games. Whereas in those games, it was just a minor annoyance here and there, and they usually served some kind of purpose, even if that purpose wasn't very good. Even General White was not all that bad. In fact, I wouldn't even put that as the worst example of backtracking when only accounting for the first 3 games. That goes to the Flopside Pit. And sure, the Flopside Pit as a single instance of backtracking may be worse than any single instance of backtracking in Sticker Star, but there are so many times you have to backtrack in Sticker Star that as a whole it is much more egregious. It doesn't help that the battle system, and especially the running system, make the enemies much more annoying when backtracking. But this game does have one strange mechanic. They've sort of incorporated the first attack badge as a base mechanic. As you progress through the game, some enemies will be instantly defeated if you first strike them. But that's only some enemies. Even at the end of the game, most enemies can't be defeated like this. And because of the lack of permanent character growth, it's really confusing what decides when an enemy is too weak. This can make backtracking a little less tedious, but because of how inconsistent it is on what enemies this applies to, and how confusing as to when it takes effect, it really doesn't help much. Hey, this is future me with a correction. So while I was in the middle of editing this, I happened to look at the first strike page on the Mario Wiki, and found out what determines when you instantly defeat an enemy. So when you get an HP up heart, your health goes up by 5. Well, every time your health goes up by 10, so every 2 HP up hearts you get, the amount of damage you deal when you first strike an enemy goes up by 1. See how at 20 HP I do 4 damage, but later in the game when I have 85 HP I do 10 damage. If the amount of damage you deal is greater than the amount of health the enemy has, you will instantly defeat them instead of starting a battle. Like, how are you supposed to figure this out? The game does not explain this, and I didn't even notice the increased damage I was doing. And this also just doesn't help much at all, because at max health you do 12 damage, and there are plenty of enemies with more than 12 health. The only world you can backtrack through without having to initiate battle at max health is World 1. Every other world has enemies above 12 HP. In fact, there's like one enemy type in World 2 with less than 13 HP. At the end of the game, almost all of World 2's enemies are too strong to one-shot with a first strike. What is the point of this? Okay, back to the main review. Point is, backtracking really bogs this game down. So why don't we talk about the element of the game where backtracking takes the most effect? The museum. The museum is the one side quest this game has. To complete it, you must put one of each kind of sticker on display. There are 2 halves to it, one for normal stickers and one for thing stickers. If you have a sticker that hasn't been displayed, the door to where it goes will light up, which is convenient, but looking for specific stickers already placed can be a bit annoying. You also can't tell which rooms have been completed from the outside. Once you place a sticker, you can read a brief description for it, but the description for them are pretty useless. They give a very vague power rating for the normal stickers with 1 to 5 stars, which tells you nothing about how much damage it can do. It is so difficult trying to figure out how much damage any sticker does because nothing gives you the exact numbers, on top of the varying amounts of damage they do depending on action commands. The hammers are the worst for this given the timing. What's the difference between a normal hammer and a slap hammer? Well, to find out you need to test it yourself, and you better remember how much it does. It is such a pain trying to form a strategy around what stickers to use in terms of damage because it's so difficult determining the amount of damage they do. I tried to figure out the damage numbers for a number of stickers, but gave up because of how annoying it was. And it is pointless anyway. This game doesn't want you to think about numbers at all. It doesn't want you to look at the jump sticker and think that it hits the enemy 5 times. First jump does 7 and the rest do 1, totaling to 11 damage. It doesn't want you to look at the hop slipper and think, this hits 10 times at 2 damage each, totaling in 20 damage. It wants you to think the hop slipper has more jumps than the normal jump, therefore it is better than the normal jump. This game is uninterested in you using damage numbers to form strategy. It wants you to just use stronger stickers, so it just says which ones are stronger without specifying how much stronger. That's also why enemy health numbers are combined, so you don't have specific numbers for enemies, so you don't think of the stickers in specific damage numbers. The point is, this game does a poor job communicating stuff like this, and the museum doesn't help at all. The things are even worse. They don't even have a star rating, and the description for the things doesn't tell you anything of what it does. Sure, the descriptions are funny, but in no way are they practical. So if you're preparing for a boss, you might get the idea to look through the museum to see what things could be of help to bring. But because they tell you nothing about what it does, it's useless for that. If that wasn't enough, just like every other thing you use stickers for, once you put a sticker in the museum, you lose it, which isn't a big deal for the normal sticker since you'll be getting a ton of them anyways, though parting with the Mega Flash stickers can be irritating. But the main issue is the thing stickers. If you're attempting to fill out the museum, that means every time you get a new thing, you have to go back to Decalburg, sling the thing, and put it in the museum instead of saving it for something more useful. If you get a thing that's strong against a boss, you have to first put it in the museum, then get it again, and if you're unwilling or unable to buy it, that means backtracking to where you first found it. And since the museum doesn't tell you what things do, if you want to test it before going to the boss, that means backtracking again after testing it out. And also, because of the inventory and how you'll likely have a mostly full album, if you have multiple things, you'd basically need to do them one at a time. Sling the first thing, go and put it in the museum. Sling the next thing, put that one in the museum. And the backtracking just keeps piling up. People only ever talk about Thousand Year Doors backtracking, but look at this game. General White has nothing on the backtracking in this game. It legitimately really bothers me how people go on about how much Thousand Year Door is a huge backtracking problem, when really it isn't even all that bad, and this game does it so much worse, and it happens much more often. Now, despite all I just said about the museum, somehow, I still kinda like it. It's honestly the most enjoyable part of the game for me. And that sounds wrong. It really does. I even have a hard time comprehending it because everything about it makes the game worse. All it does is compound the backtracking problem. Looking at it objectively from all angles, it just sucks. Yet I like filling it out. It's just kinda satisfying adding more to it and seeing entire sections completed. It is actively making the experience worse by adding more backtracking, but I just can't help but still feel that satisfaction when I fill it out. It's like an abusive relationship. Sometimes it's hard being a completionist. Speaking of, your reward for completing it. If you get all the things, you get a sound test, which is okay but not worth the trouble. It doesn't even have every track in the game. Also, it contains spoilers if you haven't beaten the game. But then, the reward for getting all normal stickers is a bestiary of sorts, which is incredibly dumb. Imagine getting the catalog for finding all the badges in the previous games. That doesn't make any sense. Even then, you have to pay a coin to look at it for a limited time. It's only one coin, but what's the point in limiting your time? Not that looking at it is all that interesting. It doesn't tell you anything about the enemies, it just shows them doing their battle animations, and it doesn't even have the bosses. This is one of the most pointless rewards for completion I have ever seen, and it's a slap in the face for completing the museum. The most satisfying part of the game is still rendered unsatisfying upon completion. There's one thing that makes filling out the museum a lot worse than it would be otherwise. The secret doors. This shop in World 3 sells secret door stickers. There's like 1 or 2 times you can find them just in the world, but otherwise you can only get them at this shop. Secret doors have 2 uses. In battle, they basically guarantee you can flee from battle. It is never worth using a sticker to run from battle. The main point of fleeing is not wanting to waste stickers, but the main use for these stickers is to uncover secrets. In each level, there is this silhouette of a door somewhere. In order to access it, you need to buy the door sticker, then use Paperization to place it here.
Another door? Hello, door.
Once you do, you can enter the secret area, which is just a room usually containing a thing found nowhere else. Though sometimes you only get normal stickers from it, and one time you get a health extension. The secret doors make trying to complete the museum hell. So first off, 1 door sticker equals 1 secret you can unlock. There are 35 levels with secret door spots in them, meaning you have to buy 35 doors. They cost 80 coins, so in order to get every secret you'd need to spend 2,800 coins. Now it would be less since you can find at least 1 door in a level, and you could grind out that without having to spend money, but that would be very tedious. If you're avoiding enemies like the game encourages you to, you'll have a very hard time getting enough money to buy these doors. Getting the coin bonus at the end of levels by fighting enemies will give you plenty of money for them, but then you'd have to engage with the terrible battle system, so it's lose-lose. And the bigger issue with these doors is how much more backtracking it piles into the game.
Aren't I done yet? There's more?
You don't even gain access to the door stickers until partway through World 3, which is like the halfway point in the game. You can't even start unlocking the doors until this, which means if you want to get them all, you'll need to backtrack to every single level you beat before this point. You could try to rat out a path that gets you to this shop as soon as possible, but that still leaves you with quite a few levels you'll need to backtrack to. And also, you'll need to constantly go back to the shop to buy more doors. Even if you have enough money to buy all 35 doors, you won't have the inventory space for them, especially since doors are medium-sized stickers. Once you have access to the doors and are done getting the secrets in all the levels you've already complete, it's not so bad, but again, you'll need to go back to the shop to restock constantly. And the doors will take up inventory space that could have been used for more useful stuff. All this just to get more things that are pretty redundant anyway, since almost all things function similarly in battle. The ones you'll find normally throughout the game are more than enough to get by, and you never need to use a thing found behind a door for any puzzle. Well, with one exception, but I'll get to that later. The point is, the secret doors are a very poorly implemented secret. They don't require much in the way of exploration to find them. They are pretty out in the open. The only one that was hard to find was because the place was so dark it was hard to even see. There is no challenge with finding and unlocking these doors. It's just backtracking for the sake of backtracking. You want to know how these could have actually been implemented properly? Instead of buying door stickers at the shop, how about the doors themselves are scraps, and one is hidden in each level, so the challenge is finding the scrap, and then finding where to place it, all while not having to leave the level. It would almost be like actual exploration, and there'd be a point to the backtracking. So now that I've thoroughly explored nearly every aspect of the game in broad strokes, it's time to look at the individual worlds themselves. The game is divided into 5 main worlds. There's technically a 6th world, but it hardly counts. Each world, as mentioned before, is divided into individual levels. Now, I won't go into depth on every single level, as a lot of the problems with them have basically already been covered. For a lot of these levels, the problems aren't anything to do with the level itself, but rather all the problems that persist throughout the entire game. World 1 is a very simple world. It doesn't have a unique theme to it, mechanically speaking. It's the tutorial world, essentially. There's not much beyond the basic mechanics of the game. You get taught about paperization, things, the battle spinner, and different types of enemies. This first level has you interacting with a few toads, which isn't indicative of what the game is like, since that rarely happens as something essential to the level. You do have to escort this toad back to Decalburg in 1.4, which is annoying since he runs from enemies if he comes into contact with them. By the way, if the toad runs, any of these enemies you've defeated will respawn. So once again, running from battle is more optimal. Also, these 2D sections are annoying because it's harder to avoid enemies. In this level, the fan is causing high winds, and it is destroying this other toad's garden. You help him by getting the fan, then using paperization to restore the garden. But once you use up the fan, it comes back and destroys the garden again, so you helping him out is undone. 1-5 introduces the Starman, which acts like in the 2D platformers, granting you invincibility while instantly defeating any enemy you touch. It shows up very rarely, and doesn't add much to the game at all. This level also has a shop in it, not that it even has anything very useful you can't get from other shops. There is really little unique about World 1. There's not much that can be said that's specific to it. World 2 has more unique aspects to it, but it's also when the game starts getting really bad. The first level here isn't so bad, though it has quicksand that's easy to get past. If you let yourself sink low enough, it instantly kills you. That's a bit harsh, isn't it? This kind of thing in previous games would just do 1 damage to you. Whatever, it's not a big deal as long as there's no secrets under the sand. There's a secret under the sand. Though to be fair, you do get a hint for the spot. This toad who wants to find this secret never leaves this spot, even after finding it yourself. Would have been neat if he found it later and had more dialogue, but we can't have nice things here. Anyways, you do need to go down here because it's how you get the first tablet piece of scrap. That's the main gimmick, if you can call it that, of this world. There are 3 tablet pieces you need to find to access the final level. They're not very hard to find, in fact this is the most hidden one, but they don't add a whole lot. This level ends with this pyramid you have to figure out how to climb, which is a decent section, though you have to go up it twice if you want the HP heart. Next is the Yoshi Sphinx. This is where dry bones are introduced, and as mentioned before, they're really annoying. Inside the Sphinx, you have these torches on the walls that light the place up. You can turn them on or off by jumping into them. When they're all off in a room, that room goes dark, and this doesn't really do anything. You can still fight enemies the same way. It's not like the first game where you couldn't fight enemies in the dark. The only time this comes into play is this room where you can see a hidden path when it's dark, but that's it. This place is pretty small, so there's not a lot going on here. You get in a fight with some Paracoopas who talk like fighter pilots, and that's kind of charming, or it would be if they had designs. Seriously, would it have killed them to give these Koopas a pilot outfit? Or hell, just aviators. I'd take just aviators. But no, we can't even have that much. Now right after the fight is the comet piece. But there's more beyond it, so if you get it right now, you have to do the level again. And you need to go past it because that's how you get the tablet piece. Speaking of tablet piece, the last one is in that sandstorm level I brought up before. It's in this oasis, but you need to restore it with the faucet. I hope you had one of those on you, otherwise that's more backtracking on top of the backtracking for the vacuum to even get into the oasis. Only compliment I'll give is for this smug-ass toad who immediately starts relaxing in the water the moment you restore the place. But then there's 2-3, the Sand Shifter Ruins. This level sucks. So at the beginning there's a spike at the end of a bridge that's annoying to get past, but the main meat of this level is underground. It's a 2D section, the second and last one by the way. It's a really underdeveloped gameplay style. Being a 2D section, it's annoying to avoid enemies. But also, this is a maze. There are a bunch of different paths you can take down, along with a bunch of doors that lead to other areas as well. Trying to find out which path to take isn't the worst thing, but you have to do it multiple times. There are paths that change after you pass them, so it requires you to get to the bottom, then go back to the top just to go down the same path you just went down to beat the level. And this level has 2 exits, so that's even more backtracking you must do. There's also a thing in here that is essential for later, so that's fun. The final level in World 2 is climbing this tower. You need to activate these elevators by placing the right stickers in these slots. You figure out which ones to put by observing the environment for these hieroglyphics, which is kinda cool. But that's really the only cool thing in this level. The rest of it is more sticker star, so not good. And then there's World 3. This is easily the worst world in the game. So first off, World 1 had 6 levels, and World 2 had 5 levels. World 3 has 12 levels, more than both the previous worlds combined. Not only is this world irritating to get through, but it's long, and boy does it drag. A constant hazard throughout the world is poison. There are patches of poison on the ground that you can flip over with your hammer, and there are plenty of pools of poison. The poison itself isn't inherently an issue, but you keep falling into it so often that it just becomes irritating. It's not a very good or fun obstacle because you can just walk through it, unlike the other games where it would hurt you, then put you back to an earlier point. And you can't do anything like use it to skip stuff, like, say, using lava in Mario 64 to take a bit of damage to bounce up somewhere. The only interesting thing they do with the poison is if you get into a battle in it, you'll gradually take damage in the battle if you take too long. It's a neat concept, I suppose, but it doesn't come into play much at all, and it pales in comparison to the stage hazards in Thousand Year Door. Oftentimes there are stickers you can only really get by jumping into the poison. After you complete the world, the poison goes away, which is a nice touch, and it allows you to go through the poison areas without taking damage. So I guess with these stickers you were intended to wait until now to get them? But why would you wait that long to then backtrack to get stickers you find everywhere anyways? Oh, but speaking of backtracking, you do need to backtrack through a couple of these levels when the poison is gone. One for a thing, and another for an HP up heart. But for the HP up heart, it isn't even in a place you couldn't get to because of the poison. It's on the main path. In fact, it's right next to the comet piece. Why is it here? Why wasn't it here before? And what is the correlation between getting rid of the poison and it being here? Most of the levels here aren't that bad on their own, but there's constant small annoyances here that build up, like the poison and how it's used. And the fact that this world is so long means it has even more time to build up. Going through this world is draining because it drags so much. This world is like a third of the game. But it's not just because it has 12 levels, because this world has padding in addition to this. The main goal of this world is restoring the Wiggler by finding all of his missing segments, and this is what makes this world so annoying. You'll play a level, and suddenly you'll find a Wiggler segment, and then you'll have to chase it down, which will result in backtracking through the level. But even when you do catch up to it and it decides to follow you, as soon as you finish the level, it runs away to a different level where you do the process again. Usually it goes to a level you haven't been to before, but one time it does go to a previous level, so even more backtracking is added. Seriously, why don't people talk about the backtracking in this game? When you catch up to it again, you need to fight it. Only after fighting it can you return it to the Wiggler. After beating the final one, it runs away to the harbor. It doesn't take long to get to, but again, more backtracking. This Wiggler quest just pads out an already padded out world, and it's just annoying how it constantly runs from you. It kinda reminds me of the damn Polterpup in Dark Moon, though I'd still rather play that since the general gameplay isn't complete garbage, and the last Polterpup mission is good. The only positive thing I have to say about the Wiggler segments is when you have one with you, in certain spots you'll interact with something, and when you go back to the Wiggler's house you see a little drawing about it. That's neat, even if there's very little written on them, but one issue is that they are missable, and actually pretty easily missable. Although you can get them with any segment, so if you missed one you can get it with a different segment, just as long as you don't restore the Wiggler. Talking about the levels themselves, there's not a whole lot to talk about that isn't basically already covered. Most of them kind of blend in with each other. Sometimes you go up trees, one level you ride a slow-moving leaf across the poison, and it's boring. One of the levels is just a shop, the one you buy the doors from, so that's kind of a waste. It also has a second Sling a Thing stand, which I guess can be a little convenient as you wouldn't need to go as far to do it, but only if you're in World 3, as everywhere else it would still be faster to go to Decalburg. Plus, if you're filling out the museum, why would you go here instead of the Decalburg one when you get new things? Pointless. It would be one thing if each world had a Sling-a-Thing stand, but this is the only other one. Why does this mechanic exist? Another level is Wiggler's house, and it has 3 exits. But to get them, you need to find scraps from other levels. Now you'd think that once you got the scrap, you could just get the comet piece. But if you haven't brought back the Wiggler segment that's currently obtainable, Kirsty won't let you get it. I don't understand why this restriction is here, since you can't get to the boss without all the Wiggler segments anyway. There's really no point to this. There's only 3 levels that stand out here. First is the Bafflewood. I brought it up before that this one is similar to the Forever Forest where you need to find the correct path, but here you can place stickers on the signs to mark the way. As mentioned before, this is one of the very few interesting uses for stickers, but beyond that there isn't much of anything to this level. There is a part with no signs where the clue is the flowers near the exit, and there are a couple rooms that have 2 correct paths. But nothing else noteworthy. It's just kind of a decent level at best. But then there's Stump Glade, and you're not gonna believe this, but this level is actually kind of good.
We got one!
Well, before talking about the good, you can't get in unless the Wiggler segment has run to it, which is annoying, but probably for the better. So this whole level is basically a game show called Sniff It or Whiff It, although it's annoying that they didn't continue the game show gag from the previous games. You know how in 64 it was the 64th trivia quiz-off? Then in Thousand Year Door it was both the 65th and 66th? Unfortunately, Super made a mistake in calling its quiz the 66th instead of the 67th, but it still had it. But here, Sticker Star doesn't call it the 67th or 68th Sniff It or Whiff It, which just shows to me a lack of respect for the past games. Right, I said this was a good level, didn't I? Here you play 3 games to beat it and can do a 4th optional one. The first game is Pick and Choose Panic. It's a simple yes or no trivia game, but the catch is the room is filled with poison gas, so you need to answer fast. The second challenge is Big Bonking Sniff It Bash. It's whack-a-mole but with sniffits and poison gas. You can also heal yourself if a heart appears and you hit it. The third challenge is the unrelentingly exciting Shuffle Game. It's just a shuffle game where the blocks are shuffled and you have to track the right one and hit it, but this time without poison gas. If you get it wrong, you need to fight a Sniffit. How about that? Combat is a punishment. That's all you need to do to beat the level, but you can play another round, Big Bonking Panic Pick and Choose Sniffit Bash. It's a combination of the first 2 games. You must answer the question correctly, but you can't answer until you bonk a few sniffits first. The prize you get is a radiator. Worth it. This game show is rather fun. It's fairly easy, but there's more to it than the game shows from previous games. Adding in the poison gas for pressure makes it more frantic, and the optional challenge is a clever way to escalate it. The writing in this level is also rather good. It's one of the very few parts of the game with genuine charm to it. Now, while this is a good level, there do come some caveats. For one, I mentioned the Wiggler segments will write in the diary when you take them to specific spots. One of the spots is Sniff It or Whiff It, so you need to play it again because you can't bring in a segment the first time, considering it's the prize. So, more backtracking. But there's even more, because to get an HP up heart, you need to play it again after beating the boss. Now, I don't think you need to actually do the first 3 challenges. You can just say no to him and he'll take you to the exit. But first off, why would you think to come back here for this? And if you did get the idea, how would you know you'd still get it if you skipped? It's still annoying backtracking, another to add to the pile. Also, unless you're willing to pay for the radiator, you have to at least do the last challenge to get another one. Even the good levels have caveats. but at least it is good to begin with. What isn't a good level, however, is Russell Burrow. This is possibly the worst level in the game. Here you fall down a hole and lose everything. Your hammer, all your stickers, and even Kirsty, although that part would be nice if the objective wasn't to get her back. So you have to go through this cave recollecting all your stickers. And by the way, if you brought in any leaf stickers, and they're just gone, you do get back your other stickers, but not those apparently. Peeling stickers gets really tedious here. Having your stuff taken away makes fights even more annoying, especially since even if you have hammer stickers, you can't use them before you get your hammer back. Oh, and you lose the stickers if you try to use it. Why not just not let me use it instead of deleting it? Once again, it is better to avoid enemies. You also can't paperize without Kirsty, so until you get her and your hammer back, all you can do is just walk to where you need to go, since that's the only mechanic you have left. This level is just more of the same annoying gameplay as the rest of the game, but the gimmick is to make it more annoying by putting you at square one. Taking away abilities can be done well. Thousand Year Door did it well in Chapter 4 when you lose all your partners, but here you don't have many mechanics to begin with, so taking it away doesn't do much. You're already avoiding enemies that taking away your stickers doesn't matter. World 3 is just unpleasant. It's a slog to get through. If it wasn't for Sniff It or Whiff It, there would be almost nothing redeemable about it. This is Sticker Star at its worst, at least when it comes to the worlds. Now, World 4, on the other hand, I guess by default would be the best world in the game, and it's mainly for one reason, which, don't worry, I'll get to in a minute. This is a mercifully short world after the slog of the last one. There are 6 levels, but actually 5 because one of them is just a shop and nothing else. I guess the gimmick of this world would just be ice, and that's about it. You've got ice caves and slippery paths. Nothing too special to set this world apart, but there's also nothing especially bad here. Well, by Sticker Star standards, that is. You're still just walking through boring environments, avoiding enemies because fighting them sucks, and having to backtrack because you need a specific thing to progress. The snow spikes are pretty irritating with their placement in this level, and these penguins, while not too bad, can be rather annoying. One strange thing is in this level, when you get to the top of the mountain, there's this very bizarre Birdo cameo where she swings while, I guess, singing, then gives you a goat. I still do not understand this. You can get the goat from here again, but Birdo doesn't show up. Although you can also apparently get the goat on the ice slide randomly for some reason. This level is entirely on a ski lift. It's annoying, but thankfully short. You ride the lift up and have to dodge the enemies that attack you by swinging back and forth. You also jump to get rid of the fuzzies when they're directly above you. Your punishment for missing them is getting into a battle, which just makes it tedious instead of challenging, since you can just run from battle. Honestly, this might as well not even be a full level. It's so short. The final level has an amusing part at the beginning, where you have to wait in line to get in. It's annoying that if you touch any of the Shy Guys, you get into battle, but the concept is still fine. You can also find ways to cut in front of them and they get upset about it. You can also use a door sticker to just skip having to wait as well. The rest of the level is mainly a minecart section. It's not awful, but it has nothing on DKC's minecart levels. It's pretty basic and easy. The only interesting part is having to place a sticker to get a different cart to crash so you can pick up a scrap. Even if this was all there was to this world, it would probably still be the best world since it's the least offensive. A couple levels are just minigames really, and while they still are a bit annoying, again it's nothing too offensive. But there is one more level here, 4-3. It's time for the moment you've been waiting for. The Enigmansion lives up to its name. This level is quite an enigma indeed, because this level is actually, unironically, surprisingly good. I'm being serious. This is a good level, and not one that's just a game show. It's quite refreshing and frustrating at the same time. This level shows potential. It shows this game didn't need to suck. If the rest of the game was designed like this, it could have been a good game. It would still have issues, the combat would still be ass, but it could have been good. Okay, what makes this level good? Let's just take it from the top. For one, it has a plot-driven structure. Yes, actually, in this game of all places. You approach the mansion, it's quiet. There's a toad sitting in front. He is the steward of the estate. He wants nothing more than to invite you inside to enjoy the mansion's comforts. but he is unable to at the moment. Something has happened, for inside the mansion was a terrible book that had something terrible sealed inside of it, and someone had opened it, releasing them into the mansion. While he tells you this, you can hear a rendition of Mario World's Ghost House music fade in. Is the game trying to build an atmosphere? The Toad then gives you the Book of Sealing and urges you to seal all the terrible things into it and return it to the basement. Do you see what just happened? This level has a story to it. What other levels have a story to them? You just kind of go through them to find the comet pieces with little to no context. The only other thing is the overarching story of Chapter 3, but it wasn't on a level-by-level basis. And again, it's building an atmosphere. You enter the mansion and it's quiet, with ambience as the only thing to break the silence. You enter the dining room, and the lights throughout the mansion go out. Then a horde of boos appear. It's a little lame that it's just boos, but look, I'm willing to take it at this point. Kirsty actually has a kind of funny moment where she isn't scared at all by the boos, but Mario is terrified. Don't worry, that's the only time where there's anything positive to do with her in this level, since the only thing she says from this point is asking if you're scared. She doesn't give any hints at all. But so the goal of this level is to find and defeat all the boos. It isn't just to get to the end. The only real problem with this level is that since the goal is to get rid of the boos, you have to fight them. Battling is required. However, it actually doesn't detract much, since you can just one-shot them most of the time, though you are still losing stickers by doing this. What you actually do in this level is exploring the mansion, searching each room for boos, actually having to find them. You check the furniture, pay attention to environmental clues, and solve puzzles. Even having a couple decent uses for paperization. There's a couple rooms next to each other. One has a table and a door that leads to a dead end. The other has just a blank wall with a sticker on it you can't reach. Both walls are scraps. What you need to do is swap walls so you can use the table to get to the sticker and use the door to get to another room. This is an actual good use of the paperization mechanic for a puzzle. It requires you to pay attention to the environment and put the pieces together. You can't reach the sticker, but this room has a table right where the sticker would be if it was in this room. This door leads to an outside area with a view of a room that looks like it connects to the wall in the other room. This is actually refreshing and frustrating, because this is a very simple puzzle. This should have been a puzzle in the first world to which the mechanic would have been built upon for the rest of the game. But this is world 4 of 5, and they only now do something like this. This also isn't the only time this level does anything relatively interesting with paperization. You also have to swap around a bookshelf with a safe, and at one point you get a door scrap, and you need to pay close attention to the shape of it, because it matches this portrait. Again, simple stuff that could have been in World 1, but at least we got it at all. One really baffling thing in this level are the bookshelves, because you can walk up to them and read them. They give both tutorials and lore and world building. Yes, you heard that right. Lore and world building. They talk about the ski lift and how it was a popular tourist attraction, mentioning that swinging or bouncing on the lift may startle the wildlife, which is a hint towards the ski lift level and how to deal with the fuzzies. These books also talk about the owner of the lift who really valued the safety of the tourists, but eventually retired, leaving the lift with no one to run it. He then lived in this mansion with his manservant and had a painting of himself hung in the living room, which is a hint that this painting isn't supposed to be here. There's also lore on the ghost book, and how a once famous ghost hunter defeated a horde of ghosts and put them in the book. There's even some lore on the Sticker Fest. It informs attendants on the rules of the fest, such as how they should never touch the comet. And a couple of these are just tutorials, like one explaining the Infinijump sticker, and bafflingly, one on the Battle Spinner. It mentions that pushing the button rhythmically is how to get matches. I haven't really tried this, but that doesn't really help much anyways. You'd still need to figure out what the rhythm even is, and that wouldn't help with choosing the first slot. But I really have to ask, why are these here? In World 4, why are we only now getting optional lore and world building, with it also integrating hints into them? Why haven't we been getting this the entire damn game? This level is super frustrating, because for just a brief moment, we get a glimpse of competence, a glimpse of that same energy that made the previous games good, but only a glimpse, and so far into the game, buried under a mound of crap that is the rest of the game. All the featureless toads, the complete nothingness of the world itself, the boring level design, just a brief glimpse of hope before it's all over and buried once more. There's one stain on this level that does detract from it, unfortunately, but I'm not ready to talk about it yet. Once you beat the level, the place takes on a more welcoming atmosphere. And look at that, the Stewart has a unique design. They even gave the toad of this level a unique design. Why couldn't we have this for the rest of the game? He gives you a photo of the previous owner, and when you take it to the ski lift, it turns out that actually is the owner. He was stuck there. Not sure how he managed that, but afterwards, if you go back to the mansion, he's reclaimed ownership, while the other toad becomes the servant. He seems to like it though. And now the previous owner has a unique design as well. Okay, it's the same as the first toad, but sepia tone. It's still unique enough for me, even if the first toad just goes back to being a normal toad at this point. One last thing to point out is the secret door for this level doesn't lead to a room with a thing, but instead it connects to Decalburg. I'm not sure how, considering they are on different land masses, but for once there's some interconnection in the world. It's not the most convenient shortcut, since if you aren't already in the level, it would just be faster to go to Decalburg, but it's something, I guess. Make no mistake, in the grand scheme of things, this is only a decent level. It wouldn't be all that special in basically any other game. Like, it still isn't as good as the Boo Mansion from the first game. But because it is such a leap in quality from the rest of Sticker Star, it stands out. It feels much better than it actually is when you've just come off of World 3. It simultaneously instills a sense of hope and hopelessness in this game. One bright spot to remind you of the potential, and also of how that potential was squandered. This game didn't have to suck, but it did anyways. The best is over. It's all downhill from here. World 5 isn't the worst, but it certainly isn't the best. It thankfully is also rather short, but that's mainly to do with the fact that 2 levels are basically minigames. Both involve floating down a river on a raft. The first one is a glorified Mario Party minigame. Just avoid all the stuff the Shy Guys throw at you, and fending off some bonefish. Each log on the raft representing a hit you can take. Nothing special, but nothing offensive either. The second one, you're just avoiding this giant fish. It's pretty easy, at least the first time. See, if you replay the level, the fish gets faster, and every time you replay it, it gets even faster from the last time. Not sure when his speed caps. This might seem like a fine addition if you want more of a challenge for whatever reason on this, but the issue is you have to replay it because it contains 2 exits. And both exits are at the end of the level, so you have to do the same boring challenge again, just a little harder. The second time isn't much harder, it's only the third time where you really notice it, so it just wastes your time. And if you didn't find the secret door, which is quite well hidden, you might have to play it a third time, where now it's just annoying to get to. Doesn't help that if he hits you right in the middle, he instantly kills you instead of just taking 1 log off the raft as usual. What was seemingly an inoffensive level has a catch that basically ruins it. As for the normal levels, the first one is just annoying. You have these spear guys who are snipers throwing spears at you all the time, and tall grass that makes you slow so it's hard to avoid battles. The main goal of this level is to find all 3 scraps that form a bridge to the comet piece. To do so, you must find and defeat all the spear guys holding onto them. They hide in the tall grass and are fast, so to get them you need to back them into a corner. That part is fine, but during these parts the normal enemies won't disappear when you run from battle, which is annoyingly inconsistent. One notable part is this area that is full of trash. What you do is use a vacuum or goat thing to get rid of it, and if you don't have them, it means backtracking through the horde of spear guys again. But this place contains some Easter eggs. In the pile of trash you can find pieces of paper with various things written on them, even notes from other characters you've met, like the Paracoopas from World 2. One is this weird sequence of characters that appears to be some kind of code that people still haven't been able to figure out. It is a rather interesting mystery. What could it mean?
Be sure to drink your Ovaltine, son of a bitch.
Though knowing this game, it's probably just gibberish. But the most notable things to find here are Easter eggs of both Parakarry and Goombella. While I don't believe this was intentional, the fact that the only references to past games in Sticker Star are found in the garbage is insulting. This game stripped Paper Mario of all that made it good and unique and threw it in the garbage. Literally. Screw this level, there's nothing good here. At least the next level isn't too bad. It's in some ruins, so it has something interesting about it thematically, and there's really nothing that stands out as bad. At least that isn't exclusive to it. But it's still underbaked. Also, the final 2 levels are just typical lava levels with all the lava level tropes you'd expect. In the first one, there's a part where you freeze the lava, which would be metaphorically cool if I didn't have to backtrack for a thing to do it. And the second one revolves around this platform you use as an elevator by dropping chain chomps on it. There's more chain chomps here than in the Chomp Ruins. There was only 1 there. Coming back to this level can be annoying to get to the correct level of the volcano because you can't just choose which floor, it cycles. But that's about it for this world. Probably one of the better worlds, but only because 2 and 3 are worse. not because this world does anything good. If it weren't for the 2 raft levels, this would just be another typical Sticker Star world with nothing to stand out. Technically, this game has a 6th world, but it hardly counts at all. It's 3 levels, and by that I mean 1 level. The first level isn't a level. You just see this rock wall, and after you figure out how to get past it, you're at the 2nd level, which is an airship. The airship is okay, I guess. Nothing stands out about it besides it's an airship. I guess it has the only 2 bruiser enemies in the game. That's something. But the 3rd level is just a fight with Kamek, and then the final boss after this carpet part. But that's it. Now figuring out how to access the world, well, as soon as you get the boat you can go to the 1st level, but nothing will happen until you have all the royal stickers. Then they will destroy the wall revealing Bowser's castle, but it's flying so you can't reach it. Kirsty asks if you have any friends who can fly, but the thing is, you don't. You have to figure out how to get up there with no hint at all. The first time I played this game, I was stumped. I had no idea how to get up there. I searched everywhere but didn't find anything. I thought maybe the big fish in the raft level could be it because at the end he flies off, but it wasn't. You don't meet anyone who can fly in this game. Nothing in Decalburg can help. Even the Enigmansion can't grant salvation from this. Eventually, I checked the one place I hadn't looked, the Wiggler. And guess what? He's turned into a flutter. Tell me, how on earth was I supposed to think the ground-locked Wiggler was who I needed to fly? How could I have guessed he would just become a flutter? Sure, Wigglers turn into flutters, I guess, but that's not something that ever comes up in Mario games. Flutters don't appear much, so even relying on knowing this from other games, which is still bad design, won't help because the chances are you might not even know about flutters. The only reason I knew that flutters existed was because of the flutter orb in Mario Party 6 and 7. Oh, maybe I should have played Mario Party 5, because there it was the Wiggler orb and it turns into a flutter. My mistake. This is dumb. Not only is it annoyingly cryptic what you need to do here, it kills the momentum. You're about to enter the final area. It's finally time to confront Bowser. Except no, you can't go yet. Have some more backtracking to talk to the stupid Wiggler you never wanted to see again before you can go here. It'd be like if once you finally opened the 1,000-year door, you couldn't just go in. You had to go find Flavio or something to give you a boost up the ledge. It breaks the pace for no reason and just doesn't add anything. So, this is it. I've gone over the story, the presentation, the battle system, the mechanics, the worlds themselves, and a lot of backtracking. There's only one thing left to talk about, and I'll have my friend and fellow content creator IKG Productions start us off.
Perhaps the greatest point of contention among Sticker Star discussion surrounds the game's insistence on visual themes of paper and other associated materials. This commitment to the art style greatly affects the way boss battles are handled, and to a detrimental degree. The boss fights of Paper Mario Sticker Star are framed as puzzles that the player has to solve. Attacking with normal stickers doesn't produce quick or efficient results, and this is where the player has to address the puzzle element before they lose to the boss. By using the various thing stickers found in previous levels, the player has the opportunity to severely cripple the boss, and in other instances, do massive damage. Based on that information alone, we know that the designers chose a vague middle ground to where most boss fights don't require thing stickers to defeat, but put up an incredibly tedious fight if a thing sticker is not used. The result is that there is no strategy or challenge to these boss fights on a mechanical level, but worst of all is how fragile the puzzle aspect truly is. Sticker Star's boss weaknesses operate on a logic puzzle philosophy, but in a very contrived way. Allow me to explain. In order to do the most damage and properly progress in the boss encounter, you need to consider which thing sticker would correlate to a flaw or weakness of that boss, whether that be an elemental weakness, certain physical delicacy, or even the occasional cultural connection. Sounds like really sophisticated stuff, until you realize that the solutions are basic and still clunky because of their design. Take Tower Power Pokey, for example. The weakness is the totem design of the Pokey, so the player needs to destroy the pieces of its body in order to get to the head. Problem number 1. The solution is based on a common technique for dealing with regular Pokeys in other Mario games, which gives experienced Mario players an advantage. This is antithetical to puzzle design. Problem number 2. The baseball bat is the thing sticker that takes care of Pokey's body, but it's located in the Sandshifter ruins, and not near the boss arena of World 2. While this doesn't happen as often in the early game, it's still possible to miss thing stickers completely, yet the game allows players to enter boss battles that they're entirely unprepared to fight. And this wouldn't be so bad if the thing stickers weren't essential to victory for most players, because of how poorly balanced these fights are. There are more issues still. I haven't even addressed the lack of true logic puzzle implementation. Instead of requiring the player to use thing stickers as a mathematical advantage, they often neutralize the boss outright, which doesn't require the player to try after they've used the correct thing sticker. I would have treated thing stickers the same way the first two games used special moves, which not only required star power to use, but were primarily designed to offer massive damage and cause status effects on the enemy. The fight still continued. There was no win button to be seen. The attacks simply had powerful uses. Sticker Star's boss fights are awful, but I suppose it could have been worse. I mean, you won't do anything remarkable, but at least you can look up a guide and come prepared with the correct thing sticker, and also try to avoid the baffling design choices, right? The worst thing the developers could have done was tell the player what weaknesses to look for in the boss's defense, or give them a hint as to which thing sticker they need to use. Because while players can always cheat with the internet, that would completely destroy the point of having a puzzle element. Oh right, Sticker Star does both! After attacking bosses with normal stickers, Kirsty will stop the entire encounter and tell the player how to win. The boss fights are not even interesting on a conceptual level. A majority of the bosses are large variants of standard enemies that already feel bland in the context of a Paper Mario title. The designers could have created more interesting boss characters, even within Sticker Star's own vision. The various things would have been significantly more interesting for boss fights, something that the Origami King would later fulfill. Creativity is not everything. Exceptional gameplay does not need a unique presentation to succeed. However, it can be said that a majority of the boss fights in Sticker Star are flawed and uninteresting in all dimensions of critique. Creating boss encounters that act as makeshift logic puzzles is a fine concept, but each element that goes into the design of Sticker Star's fights is unpolished and at the expense of the player's time. The thing stickers cripple the boss fights literally and metaphorically. There was a lot to gain from puzzle-based boss design, especially if they leaned into the logic and math side of things, really allowing for strategy, but they screwed up so badly at a fundamental level that all I'm left with is frustration. Back to you, Red.
The final level in each world ends with a boss fight as you'd expect, and these fights are the culmination of nearly every bad thing about this game. In Thousand Year Door, the bosses were a test of your skill with the battle system to use all tools you had available, to form a strategy and effectively manage your FP and star power. The battle system was excellently crafted, and the bosses complemented it, but Sticker Star's combat is flawed on a fundamental level. It works against itself, and it is at worst against the bosses. As pointed out by IKG, the bosses aren't fights in the same sense as the normal enemies or previous games. They are more like puzzles. Sticker Star's idea of puzzles, more specifically. You don't go into the fight and learn how to deal with it while battling. It's a damn guessing game that you'll never figure out on your first visit. Let's illustrate this with the very first boss, the Mega Sparkle Goomba. You enter the fight and he has 90 health. Let me remind you that Hooktail had 30 health overall. This is triple that. Not only that, but he has defense. And not like he takes off 1 damage like would be the case in the previous games. No, he halves all damage taken by normal stickers. Not only does he have absurd health and take half damage, but at this point your inventory is very limited. Now beating him the normal way isn't that bad, but you'll notice something upon beating him. Kirsty will tell you that you used a lot of stickers. It's with that realization that this is not how you're supposed to fight the bosses. And this is reinforced by the fact that the rest of the major bosses have 300 health. Bonetail, the damned super boss in Thousand Year Door, had 200 health. And that's in addition to quartering all damage. Not having, quartering. Fighting these bosses with normal stickers is a highly unreasonable and outright ridiculous task. Now it is possible to beat them, but it requires an insane amount of stickers, and it is so non-optimal that outside of self-imposed challenges should not be attempted. This is not how you're intended to fight. If you don't know what you're doing, you will be annihilated. What the game wants you to do is use things. Things are not affected by the defense, but even then, the game expects you to use very specific things. Each of these bosses has a specific weakness that cripples it. The Goombas is the fan or scissors. You're expected to wait for the right opening, then use the correct thing, which will do an absurd amount of damage and weaken the boss at the same time. Then spam strong attacking things. But by nature of the consumable-based battle system, You could just not have the correct things on you. In fact, you could have no things on you because they take up a lot of inventory. If you don't have what is needed to beat the boss, what can you even do about it? You're expected to engage the boss, get your ass handed to you when nothing you have works, then run from the battle. Yes, you can run from boss fights. So you run, leaving the boss there, so you can go, backtrack to find the right things, and come back. Keep in mind, you can't just push start to exit a level you haven't beaten. Imagine you're fighting Macho Grubba, but you don't have his weakness, so you run, go off to find it, all the while he's just standing there waiting for you to come back. Again, I have to bring up the backtracking problem. And again, why don't people talk about the backtracking in this game? Yes, I get it, General White is annoying, but Sticker Star literally has backtracking in the boss fights. This is infinitely worse than Thousand Year Door's few instances of kind of annoying moments. And you could do this multiple times if you don't know what the correct things are. Some of them are obvious, but you wouldn't know until you fight it, and even then, only if you found the right thing prior. If you never got the thing for the boss, how the hell are you supposed to know how to beat it? Now let's get into the bosses individually. There's no need to say anything more about the Mega Sparkle Goomba. So how about Tower Power Pokey? IKG had already mentioned his weakness in the baseball bat. This cripples him, reducing the fight to nothing. You take off 200 HP. At that point, finishing him off is trivial. What wonderful boss design. Unreasonably difficult or pitifully easy. Neither offer a satisfying challenge. But I want to specifically talk about the baseball bat as the weakness. How are you supposed to know this is the weakness? Now, it is pretty obvious why this would be good against a Pokey. I don't really need to elaborate why. And also, the fight takes place in an arena that looks like a baseball field. A good visual clue if you weren't able to connect the dots on how the bat would work against the Pokey. Here's the problem. You can only see the clue after engaging in the fight, and you wouldn't know you'd be fighting a Pokey until you got there. So before you get here, what clues are there for the baseball bat being the weakness? The name of the level is Dry Bake Stadium, but that's way too subtle for anyone to instantly think, oh, the bat is what I should bring. There are other kinds of stadiums besides baseball stadiums. All these clues would actually work really well in the previous games, because then it would be a special ability you can't just run out of and have to backtrack to get another of. The weaknesses are consumables you can only have one of, are only found in one location, and are expensive to buy. And again, if you missed the bat, what would you even think to do? The bat is in the Sandshifter Ruins, a place you'd rather not revisit at all. This game has a big communication issue. It doesn't communicate what you'd need, where to get it, or that you'd even need it. The World 3 boss, Gooper Blooper, is one of the worst, and how appropriate. The bloopers in this world are weak to fire, and you'll probably very easily guess the boss is a blooper. So fire-based things are what you should bring, right? No, fire isn't his weakness. Going into the fight, the blooper will slap to the beat of the music, so maybe an instrument is the answer? No, none of the music-related things are the weakness either. So there goes any reasonable guess on what would work given what clues the game itself gives. When you fight him, after each turn he changes poses. Once he becomes purple, his next attack will be to spit ink at you. If you fail to block it, you get a debuff that makes you miss attacks, on top of poisoning you. It does 4 damage initially, then 6 poison damage each turn for 3 turns. And by the time it wears off, he's ready to hit you with it again. Getting hit by this sucks, and makes fighting this guy without his weakness hell. So what is his weakness? The sponge. You use it as a shield, and it absorbs and reflects the poison back at the boss, crippling him instead. Okay, sure. It makes sense that the sponge would do this. But again, you'd only think it would work after already engaging the boss and seeing he has that attack. But even still, if you knew the sponge was a shield. Again, if you want to test out the thing, you'll lose it in the process, which results in more backtracking. But also, you could have just not found the sponge in the first place, like how I missed it on my first playthrough. On my first playthrough, I did not find the sponge, which left me to try and fight the boss without it, and without any clue as to what his weakness is. It was awful, and the only reason I managed to get past him was because I looked up what his weakness was and where to find it. There is no hint to where a boss's weakness is, and the farther into the game you go, the more places they can be, which means if you don't look it up, way more backtracking. I'm going to keep hammering in that this game has horrible backtracking until people stop saying Thousand Year Door is the one with the backtracking problem. Once again, using the weakness on this boss cripples him to the point fighting him is trivial. When he's poisoned, he takes 30 damage each turn and won't hit you, allowing you to steamroll him. Before you can go into Worlds 4 and 5, you need to fight this big Cheep. At first, you fight him like normal, until he jumps in the water and fully heals himself, which is really annoying, especially if he used any things on him. What's even more annoying is you can't hit him at all while he's in the water. To be able to hurt him, you need the fish hook. Now, the answer is obvious. Like, yeah, you'll need a fish hook to get him out of the water. Even if you haven't found it, you'd probably still guess it. The issue is it's behind a secret door. But to be fair, it's the one right next to where you buy them, and it's pretty hard to miss. But it's still possible to miss it, and you might not even bother doing it anyways. It's unlikely you'll miss it, but you could, and even then, more backtracking anyways. But even after you bring him out of the water, you need to kill it fast, otherwise it explodes, killing you instantly. Great, thanks, just keep piling it on, why don't you? Another non-main boss you encounter is the Big Boo in the Enigmansion, the one staying on that level. It's simple, once the lights turn on you can't hit him, so you need to put it out with a thing. First time I played, I got the vacuum because, well, Luigi's Mansion seemed to make sense to me, and it worked, but not for that reason. But speaking of Luigi's Mansion, you might notice something inconsistent. In Luigi's Mansion, the Boos are stronger in the dark and weaker in the light. Here, it's the opposite. They are vulnerable in the dark and invincible in the light. It really bothers me. This game can't even pay proper respect to Luigi's Mansion. But even ignoring Luigi's Mansion, it goes against what you'd expect. Darkness is supposed to hide things while light reveals it. But this is the opposite. The Mr. Blizzard is probably the best boss simply because it's the only one you can actually be properly prepared for going into it. It's the snow world, so it would stand to reason the boss would be snow or ice themed, and thus heat-based things would work well. And that is true. There's no tricks here. Just bring in heat-based things, some fire flowers, and burn hammers, and you're good. Still not a satisfying boss because you just destroy him, but at least the backtracking is kept to a minimum. The World 5 boss, however, after just dealing with the snow boss and seeing how this world ends in a volcano, you might think to bring some water or ice-based things. But no, it isn't a fire boss, it's Petey Piranha. But it doesn't end there, because they decide to change things up here. He isn't weak to a specific thing. Instead, you need to wait for him to do a spin attack to get dizzy. Then you can hit him to knock him over, which exposes his belly button as his weak point, and at that point you just jump on him. You can't just do this. Set up a rule on how the bosses are supposed to be fought, just to change it up with no indication or hint. At the very least, you'll likely not have to backtrack for this one since the best stickers to use are ones you'll probably already have on you, so in a sense it's one of the better bosses. A few times you'll run into Bowser Jr. The first time is just a tutorial for things. You use the scissors on him to win instantly. You have to use the scissors because he'll just heal himself. The second time is just a normal fight, really. He can heal himself, but otherwise just use whatever. You can deal extra damage to him when he's holding the bombs, though you also hurt yourself if you jump on him. The third fight, however, is more dumbass I hope you brought the right sticker kind of fight. But for this one, it's the Tanuki tail, and you just reflect the spike balls he shoots at you for massive damage. Same problem as all the others, but with very specific normal stickers instead of things. At least they're found in the level. You also fight Kamek a few times. The first time is just a normal enemy fight, nothing special about it. Oh hey, jumping on him while he's on his broom doesn't make him fall off like the previous games. Just another way in which this game doesn't respect its predecessors. The second fight, however, he plays a dirty and rather annoying trick. He turns all your stickers into flip-flops. They keep their size and you can still see if they're shiny or flashy, but unless you remember where your good stickers are, you could be wasting them. The flip-flops are weak, but they work like e-hammers. But how would you even know that's how they worked? I didn't on my first playthrough, which caused this fight to last a lot longer, and I wasted more stickers than necessary. And the final fight with him is worse, because he does the same thing, but this time it doesn't show which of your stickers are shiny or flashy, so you have an even higher chance of wasting stickers you wanted to save. Also, he makes clones of himself, and will fly out of range. When he's flying, you are forced to waste a sticker on the empty space below him. The first time I played this when I didn't know how the flip-flops worked, this was hell. Doing pitiful damage, constantly wasting stickers because there's no do-nothing command. It was awful. But knowing how they work makes the fight not so bad. It's still an awfully designed fight, but at least it's not completely terrible anymore. And at last, the final boss, Bowser. This is the worst boss in the game. No, that doesn't accurately describe it. This is the absolute worst part of the entire game. Think about every bad thing about this game. All the awful design decisions, the atrocious battle system, the garbage level design, the terrible puzzle design, the excruciating amount of backtracking, the other bosses. All of it. Out of everything. This is the worst part. Can you tell I'm mad? 'Cause this damn fight, is what finally broke me. I didn't beat this game prior to this video. I endured all the crap this game threw at me. From the start to here, I pushed through. But this fight is so bad I couldn't continue. I gave up and never returned, until now. You want to know why this fight is so bad? I'll make it nice and simple. Imagine, if you will, you're about to get into a boss fight. Same as the others. You have no idea what its weakness will be and probably don't have it on you. So you go in. Uh-oh, you don't have the right thing. Time to backtrack. Only you can't just leave, because for this fight, and this fight only, they disable your ability to run. It does, in a way, give you a do-nothing command, so that's nice. What isn't nice is you're stuck fighting an agonizing boss without its weakness, and no way to leave and get it. So you have to die. And after you come back with the correct thing, you realize this is a multi-phased boss, and each phase has a different weakness, each of which you won't have any clue for until you reach that point in the fight. That is what this fight is, and it is fucking awful. How the fuck are you supposed to prepare for this fight? There's no hint at all. You just go in, die, come back with the correct thing, die again on the next phase, and it continues for the whole fucking fight. Fuck this piece of shit boss. Sorry, I lost composure there. But this fight is just that infuriating, that I couldn't just hold it in. It makes me unreasonably angry, and I've been holding this in for damn near a decade. So let's just go over each phase. This first phase, he has minions that are in front of him. So you can't even hit Bowser until you get rid of them. And they respawn after each turn, so you need to use tape to close those shutters. So, time to die so you can go get some. By the way, if you die, you'll have to fight Kamek again if you didn't leave to save after beating him. So you come back with the tape, and now you can focus on Bowser. Also, you can't jump on him, which is inconsistent with the first two games, so messing with people who played them. After dealing enough damage, he'll walk to the next part of the fight, pretty slowly I might add, and then heal himself. Lovely. Nothing makes me feel like I've wasted stickers more than a boss healing itself. Next, he's being guarded by a Womp, and the Womp's weakness is scissors. You can tell when he gets out of the way for Bowser to attack. But it's not just that. No, that would be too easy. If you use the scissors on him, you will waste them. First, you need to knock him over. How do you do that? You hit him multiple times with a hammer. An eek hammer will do the trick easily. But how are you supposed to figure that out? Just use random stickers until you use the right one, I guess. But what's likely to happen is you see that the scissors are his weakness, then you use them before knocking him over, and having to die again to get another chance. Or do you? Because when he's on the ground, his defense is destroyed, meaning you can use other stickers to beat him. So the damn scissors hint on his back is a red herring that will likely make you waste more time thinking you need the scissors when you actually don't. Why is that there if anything else can work? So after that, Bowser is surrounded by Potobos, and he uses them to attack, and they hurt. So, time to die again and get a cold-based thing to freeze them. It works, but that's not actually the weakness. The weakness is the fan, because you use the fan to fling the Potobos into Bowser, dealing a lot of damage and ending the phase. And for the final phase, he has a chain chomp that he throws at you. And if you don't have what you need, time to die again. But what you need isn't a thing at all. It's like that last Bowser Jr. fight. You need a tail to hit the chain chomp back at him so he falls off the ledge, ending the fight instantly. The slap hammer might also work, but the tail is much more effective. But again, how are you supposed to guess this? They will sometimes give you another tail in the fight if you don't have one, so I suppose it's not as bad as when you need things, but it's still really bad design. Also, timing the tail can be a real pain, so even if you come prepared, you could still mess it up. If you try to use a leaf, which automatically gives you excellence on the next attack, as well as automatically block, and then the tail, it doesn't work. So that just adds more bullshit to the pile. So finally you beat him. But then there's yet another phase. He's big, has multiple targets, and only takes 1 damage from anything you throw at him. That's a Mega Flash slap hammer wasted. You're just supposed to wait for Kirsty to go into your album, then use her, which will allow you to actually hurt Bowser, as well as give you 5 attacks in 1 turn. And at that point, you just unload and decimate Bowser. As long as you use Kirsty, this part is nothing. There's not really a problem with this phase other than you can waste good stickers if you don't realize you only do 1 damage. And not to mention, it really just punishes you for preparing with powerful stickers. All the previous phases are puzzle-based. Use the correct sticker at the correct time. There isn't a phase that's just a straight-up fight until this last phase, and by this point it really doesn't matter what stickers you use because you use 5 at a time, and are stronger. You're going to destroy him no matter what you use. Not to mention the Infinite Jump is no different against this phase whether or not you use Kirsty. I think I made it abundantly clear what I think of this boss. It sucks. It is horribly designed. It is every bad thing about this game put into one boss. Okay, maybe not literally everything, but it's pretty damn close. The fact that it's a multi-phased boss where each phase has its own weakness you need to clear it, where you have to die if you don't have it and restart the fight is just plain awful design. Okay, I want to make it clear you technically don't need any of these weaknesses to beat him. Although you might need the tail for the Chain Chomp phase, the jury's still out on that one. But the point is, technically you don't need them. But good luck doing it. Just because it's possible doesn't mean it isn't horribly designed. It's designed so you basically have to do that. Just because technically you don't doesn't negate the fact that that is how it was intended to be fought. There is nothing redeemable about this. Nothing. This is, and I say with zero hesitation, the absolute worst boss in any game I've played. The only competition it has is Bubsy 3D's final boss, and that sucked, don't get me wrong. But it only had 1 phase and didn't have weaknesses tied to consumables you'd have to backtrack to get if you wanted the fight to not completely destroy you. This fight is god-awful. All the bosses are awful. Some of the worst in any game I've played. But this is on a whole new level. This is shockingly bad. Abysmally so. What makes a game bad? Such a simple question, but one that would generate a variety of answers. Now, what is the point of even asking this question? Some people would answer that a game can only be bad if it's riddled with technical issues. Glitches, poor frame rate, lack of polish, unresponsive controls, stuff like that. As you can guess, as evident from my arguments, I heavily disagree with these people. A game can be polished, but still be a bad game. Sticker Star is polished. On a technical level, Sticker Star meets Nintendo's standards of quality. You won't be suffering any game-breaking glitches, you won't fall through the floor or anything like that. Everything works as intended. The problems of this game are not of a technical nature, as this game is quite sound in that aspect, but it's still a bad game. The core design of the game is severely flawed in many ways, and it doesn't matter how polished it is, it's still bad. Sticker Star is one shiny turd. You could even say flashy, but a polished turd is still a turd. Just because it isn't glitchy doesn't mean it isn't bad. Some people might say that the game is good if you don't compare it to the previous games. And well, I hope I've shown that this game is still bad independent of the first 3 games. It isn't bad because it's not like Thousand Year Door. It's bad because nearly every aspect of the design was poorly handled. But also, if a Paper Mario game has to be removed from the Paper Mario series to be good, that's a bad thing. It's called Paper Mario, so it will be judged as a Paper Mario game. If it didn't want to be compared to them, it shouldn't have been called Paper Mario. It's a bad game independent of the series around it, but the fact that it is part of that series makes it even worse. Sticker Star is more than just a bad Paper Mario game. It's the game that destroyed Paper Mario's identity. Sure, Super Paper Mario is the game that changed the formula, but it still kept the spirit of the previous games. Sticker Star is when that spirit died. Paper Mario had changed. It turned into something it wasn't, and it would never go back. I want to take a moment to talk about another series. Mario & Luigi was the second Mario RPG series that ran parallel to Paper Mario. It was on handhelds while Paper Mario was for consoles. I've only played one of them, Partners in Time, and I did rather like it, but not as much as Paper Mario. It seems like a rather cool series, and unlike Paper Mario, it stayed consistent to its own formula. Each of its games built upon the previous, never betraying what it was known and loved for. While Paper Mario was quick to abandon all it was loved for, twice at this point. I kind of resent that, but that's not a Mario & Luigi problem. I didn't pay that much attention to that series, but after Sticker Star single-handedly destroyed all there was to love about Paper Mario, The very next Mario and Luigi game that was announced caught my eye. Mario and Luigi Paper Jam. It was a crossover between Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi. The very concept sounds like it should be amazing, so it's a shame that it wasn't. Now, I'm not making a statement on the quality of the game itself. I haven't played it. The issue is that it squandered its opportunity to be a crossover, as it wasn't truly a crossover between these two series. First off, it's not both a Mario and Luigi and Paper Mario game. It's a Mario and Luigi game guest starring Paper Mario. Not necessarily a problem, given it would probably be difficult merging the gameplay of both series, but it's still more favorable towards Mario and Luigi. The problem is really that it was a crossover of Mario and Luigi and Sticker Star. The premise is that Luigi knocks over a book that apparently has the Paper Mario universe in it or something, but the only stuff that comes out of it is only stuff found in Sticker Star. Nothing from the other games, just Sticker Star. We just got an awful Paper Mario game that was completely sanitized from any of the unique things that people loved about this series, and it is the only one that gets represented in the crossover with the other Mario RPG series? Can you imagine how much that stung? They could have done so much with a crossover, and what they chose to do is this? They could have had Kammy Koopa interact with Mario and Luigi Kamek. They could have had the X-Nauts team up with the Shroobs, or Dementio team up with Fawful. I'd list more cool things if I was more familiar with Mario and Luigi, but you get the point. The potential this had if they tapped into the entire Paper Mario series, instead of going with the one that was basically no Super Mario Brothers, but paper. This is a terrible way to do a crossover. The point of a crossover is to attract people from both series and give them something they can both enjoy by paying respect to both series. And as a result, get fans of one to check out the other. As an outsider to Mario and Luigi, this does nothing to get me interested in Mario and Luigi. There's no appeal at all for me. No reason for me to give Mario and Luigi a shot. And it doesn't even help Mario and Luigi, because the stuff I took from Paper Mario doesn't give much material for it, so it's far less interesting on that end. And what are Mario and Luigi fans supposed to take away from the Paper Mario stuff? Oh, it's just full of boring toads with no names or unique features. At least Bowser talks. Oh, sorry, Paper Bowser, because now apparently these aren't just Mario, Luigi, Peach, or Bowser. They're Paper Mario, Paper Luigi, Paper Peach, and Paper Bowser. Because Paper Mario's in a book now, and these are different characters instead of just being the same Mario as the rest of the franchise. I really don't like the Paper Mario universe is just in this magic book thing. Paper Mario was never a separate being from normal Mario. There was never an indication that this wasn't Mario or that this wasn't the actual Mario world. And you might wonder what the big deal with this is. I don't like it because it essentially erases Paper Mario's contributions to the series. One thing I loved about the first 3 games is how much they expanded Mario's world. All those new locations, all those new species, all those new characters. The unique designs for the Toads, the fact that Goombas and Koopas and other typically enemy species weren't just all evil and working for Bowser. These games made the world feel more interesting, like an actual place. Sure, some of this can be credited to Mario RPG as well, but you can't deny what Paper Mario added. But now all that is apparently just in some magic book? All this unique stuff, the new locations, the characters, the partners, Lord Blumiere and Lady Timpani. None of that exists in the real Mario universe, only in some book separate from everything else. I just find it insulting, as if to say these games aren't good enough to be part of the same universe. And I know that's not what they were trying to say when they made Paper Jam. They likely didn't think too deeply about the implications. It was more so created as a way to cross over these 2 series. It would be difficult to do a crossover like this without making them separate universes. But I still feel like it could have been handled better. I don't know the best way to do it, but there's gotta be a way. The point is, Paper Mario and all its unique stuff and contributions to the world are now separate, which takes away from the world and makes Paper Mario feel a lot smaller. And in the case of Super Paper Mario, that kind of dramatically decreases the stakes. The whole point of that game was that all of existence is going to be erased. But when you tell me these games are only in a book, the implication is that only the book will be destroyed and the rest of the universe will be fine. Perhaps you could say that this book is just a gateway to a different dimension, and since the void consumes entire dimensions, that the stakes aren't affected. But that raises more questions. Okay, so there are 2 dimensions with their own Marios, Luigis, Peaches, and Bowsers? There are 2 Mushroom Kingdoms? It was just a coincidence that Count Bleck came to the Paper Mushroom Kingdom to kidnap Peach and Bowser? Tippy could have gone to the real Mushroom Kingdom to get the real Mario and the others? Could have instantly gotten all 4 heroes that way. And also, if it's just a different dimension, why do all the separate dimensions in Super look like they fit in the Paper Mario style? Also, if you're saying the book is a gateway to a different dimension, why doesn't it work like the dimensional doors in Super? Why does it just suck up residents from the Paper World when opened, and not the other way around? In the context of the Paper World, what happened? Did they just get sucked into the sky suddenly? Was it the Void? Is that actually what happens when a dimension is destroyed by the Void, and why the Sammer Kingdom came back? It just doesn't make any sense. And it tells me that all of Super is in this book, and that the Void has no power outside it. I know I'm thinking about this a lot more than they did, but it just really bothers me that they imply these games are separate from the rest of the series. It takes away from the world, and again it just reduces Paper Mario's identity to just it's a Mario but paper, when that was never its identity. Mario canon is a strange and inconsistent beast. Continuity has never been a priority. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. It's something you're not supposed to take seriously. But I don't want to just not think about it. I love it when these games acknowledge each other, like when Luigi's Mansion references Mario 64, or when Sunshine references Luigi's Mansion with Flood and the paintbrush being made by Egad, or how in Mario Kart there are several tracks that obviously take place on Isle Delfino. And even some games reference Paper Mario, like Mario Party 5 has the Star Spirits, or Mario Party 6 has Wackas and Snow Bunnies on a board. Paper Mario even references Mario and Luigi. In Thousand Year Door, these bartenders look an awful lot like the Beanish, and there's even Chocola Cola. Not to mention both series share locations, like Star Hill and Shooting Star Summit are basically the same place, which was also in Mario RPG. They were always meant to be the same universe. None of this alternate book universe stuff. The best way to interpret this whole thing is that only Sticker Star was in the book, while the previous games are just the normal Mario universe. And that's what I choose to believe. That was quite a tangent, but the greater point to it was to show that Sticker Star isn't just a single bad game. It poisoned Paper Mario and other games beyond it. It destroyed Paper Mario, reducing it to just paper. You may think you have a good understanding of what I think of Paper Mario Sticker Star. I didn't hide anything, but I doubt you fully grasp just how much I hate this game. Hate is a very strong word, and I throw it around with this game knowing just how strong it is. Let me put this in perspective. I've played worse games. Sticker Star is not the worst game I've played. Not at all. I've played and beaten Superman 64. I've played and beaten Bubsy 3D. There is no way I could say Sticker Star is worse than those games. It would be dishonest to say it is. Those games are not only fundamentally flawed in all aspects, but also glitchy, broken messes with awful controls that makes the very act of playing them a painful experience. Those are the 2 worst games I've ever played, but I don't hate them. Sure, I hate playing them, but they don't mean anything to me. I like some Superman stuff, but I'm not super passionate about them. And who the hell cares about Bubsy? These games don't matter to me. I had no investment in whether or not they were any good. I specifically got them because I knew how bad they were and thought it would be funny. And it was. I could easily laugh at them at any time. But Sticker Star, I'm not laughing. Paper Mario actually meant something to me. I've talked about it before, but I don't like RPGs. It's a genre I've never really enjoyed. Until Thousand Year Door. I love that game, and I love the first game as well. Even Super, as flawed as it can be, there's so much about it I love. But then Sticker Star comes along and ruins everything. I hate Sticker Star. No, I despise Sticker Star. Of all the games I played, this is the one I hate the most. There is no other below it. Despite how much I hate this game, I've done my absolute best to be fair and honest towards it. To not let my hate get in the way of fairly critiquing it. No matter how I feel about it, it would be a disservice to misrepresent the game. And I also want to say, I hope any fans of Sticker Star understand what I'm doing. that I'm not attacking them for enjoying this game. No one should be ashamed for liking a game, no matter what it is. But I'm not going to hide my feelings towards it. I hate this game, not just because it's a bad game, but because of what it did to this series. Paper Mario, as it originally was, is dead, and there's no going back. And it's all this game's fault. This is where I stopped. This is the last Paper Mario game I've played, because the next game looked to be more of this. More of what I hate. Looking at that game, and how Sticker Star still had a grip on the series, is what killed my passion for it, and I still haven't played it. But don't worry, I'm not leaving it here. So next time, I'll be covering Paper Mario Color Splash.
Would you look at that? I ain't gonna lie to you, this looks bad. But maybe if we get all the toads in town to help, we can de-burrito it. Mario, the toads are probably all over the place after the Stickers Fest carnage. So track them all down and see if they can help. Sniff, snoof, sniff.
That smell. That glorious stink. Help. He's saying what we're all thinking. You know, there's no reason to put this back.
Just put it back. Don't do this.
Luigi! He's angry at Luigi.
Fuck Luigi!
Luigi, what did you do?
Oh my god, Luigi!
You sunk that ship?
What?
And poisoned everything?
Wait, what are you talking about? Wait, hold up. Are you telling me that this is an explorable level? With like a story to it? Is that what you're saying? Holy shit, he's not joking! Shut the fuck up, Kirsty!
Don't ruin this! Wait a second. I said something.
I don't know, please. This is my only day to myself. I wanted a spa day. Oh my god. First I try to go skiing, I try to go for a spa, I want to view the sunset on the ocean, and nothing. I can't do anything.
I
don't think you can run. I could be wrong, but I don't think you can run.
But what? This is
a puzzle locked boss that requires things you can't get and doesn't have a save block before it, so you'd even have to redo Kamek.
I thought you could fucking run.
No, you can't.
You can run from the other bosses.
But you can't run from him.
Holy shit.
Mario is dead.
That was morbid.
You know, I already considered this to possibly be the worst final boss I've ever played, but that just made it even fucking worse.
Wait, what are you doing?
I'm gonna be real with you. You're gonna die.
Oh god, I can't.
You think you can power me with the music from a game I wasn't in? What the fuck? Oh god, what was that?
My hand!
It was not by my hand.
Dead.
Now throw yourself off the cliff and die.
I can't do it. Literally, I can't. I'm trying.
Peach sitting there staring.
You don't.
Mario,
you have no idea the shit I went through to get here.
Your suicidal tendencies can wait. Get me the fuck down.
Oh.
You know, I wished for this to suck less, and your interpretation of that was to bring Kirsty back.
Fucking comments biased.
Hey, look! It's the only characters! Oh, and also that thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They highlight two
The only designs. Characters. I didn't mean to.
That's not what I wished for. It's fucking monkey ball bullshit.
Luigi!
Oh.
Why am I here? I didn't want to be here. That's your reward, Red. See it?
Oh, wait, they're doing the parade?
Yes.
Dare stand where he stood.
Yeah,
A
where
less
Super Mario
event-
RPG stood.
A less eventful parade than 64.
A new Toad?
Oh,
How am I gonna be able to tell them apart?
That narrows it down.
How you feeling?
Wait, why
You
would
know-
Mark this
You know, it's not actually that bad.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there was like, what, 2 good levels? That's fine by me.
No, but seriously, this game fucking sucks. Like,
Do it, Red. I believe in you.
Oh boy, it's gonna take a while.
Okay. Okay. Red's just flexing on the game now.
Money. Oh, it does end eventually, I guess.
An excellent. It caps at 100. Congratulations.
Oh man, it's done. It's finally done. You don't know how this feels for this to actually be done. Like I said all the way at the beginning of the video, Sticker Star is the game I wanted to talk about the most. And the reason I started this marathon. That's how much I hated this game. And for as much as everyone else hated it, there was a serious lack of analysis for it. Like, as far as I've seen, no one else has done something like this. I certainly would have wanted to talk about the other games at some point, don't get me wrong. They also had a lack of analysis. But I wouldn't have done them as soon as I did otherwise. I've wanted to review this game for years. Like, while I was still in school during breaks, I would write stuff in a notebook. Various personal stuff, but one topic was a Sticker Star review. I wrote like 11.5 pages before I stopped. I wasn't even done with it. That's puny compared to what I've done now, but considering the first review I made was less than 15 minutes, yeah, even back then I had a lot to say about this game. This was, I believe, in 2013, so shortly after first playing the game. And I've been wanting to review this game for that long. And here it is. It's done. It's super surreal to have finally completed it, to see it in a finished state. And it's fitting that this is my longest review to date, which is funny because somehow, I don't know how, I thought it would be shorter than Thousand Year Door. The hell was I thinking? I have no idea how I ever thought this video would be anything less than what it is. I seriously underestimated just how much there was to say. But it's interesting. This was simultaneously the easiest and hardest review to write. It was easy in the sense that I knew very well what I wanted to say about the game. Once I started writing, the words just flowed out. But it was difficult in making sure it was organized well. It had a good flow, it didn't have too many redundancies, and to make sure nothing was missing. When you write a script that's 64 pages long with over 40,000 words, it gets difficult to make sure everything is good, that everything I want to say is there. There's still probably something I missed. It's inevitable that later down the line I'll realize I forgot something. But I think I did a thorough job as is, and I hope you've all enjoyed this ride. And I'd like to give thanks to my friends, Horayn and Boxman, who were super helpful during the entire process of making this. They were there with me while I was recording the game, and you've heard bits of that recording throughout this video. They helped to write notes and timestamps to make editing this video easier, and they helped with the script, proofreading, offering corrections and suggestions, and making sure I didn't miss anything. I wrote the script myself, but without them, it wouldn't be quite the same. I'm planning on doing something with the recording, possibly a highlight reel of the playthrough, but I'm still figuring out what exactly I'll do. But anyways, extra thanks to Horayn and another friend, IKG Productions, for lending their voices to the video. I hope you enjoyed their contribution. And IKG is a fellow content creator. He also makes in-depth reviews for games, so check him out. And that's long enough. It's time to say goodbye. But first, if you're able and willing, I have a Patreon, so please consider supporting me if you feel I've earned it. I've recently added 2 more tiers if you're interested, one of which is getting access to finished scripts, which includes the notes we made for Sticker Star while playing it. Without spoiling it, I think a look-through of it would be rather amusing. And with that, I'd like to thank my patrons, Tanuki, Enemy, Just a Blank, Kaiju, and Bowie.